Hey, everybody, what's going on? So, hey, smash that like button. Hey, Kiora, this is going to be a great segment. Okay, but first thing first, how do I sound? Do I sound muffled? Do I sound okay? Does it sound back to normal? That's the most important thing because the last segment, which I'm redoing today, but I put more information into it. Okay, we're good. I don't sound muffled. I sound real good, right? Let me see if I can hear myself. Oh yeah, it sounds good. Hey, Quilla. Hey, I love you too. And so, shout out to everybody in the chat room, man. I'm so glad y'all are able to come in and join me while we got a lot of people watching, but that's okay. I'm gonna make my statement and I'm gonna make it very clear. This is the Sister Bethy Talk Show. This is connected. This channel is connected to my newspaper and our tribe. This is part of our work. I am a YouTube partner, and I have been since 2018. It ain't going nowhere. So, shout out to everybody in the chat room, everybody across the states watching, everybody in different countries watching. I absolutely appreciate everybody joining me today. Bap will probably do a redirect. Um, I've been very busy, and I'm still busy, but I've leveraging my time out. I only have one body, but I want to shout out to Janelle, the realist. Uh, I'm not going to say your whole names because I'm not going to screw them up. Hey, Damon, the enemy's public. Hey, Bridget, I see you observing the facts. Um, I think I already said a minute. The enemy's public. D. Allen Warren. Damon, I probably said, hey, Lady Virgo, you got that right. We Virgos. Yes, we are. My Lisa. Hey, Mookie, I see you. Original Intellect. Hey, Yellowhammer. Hey, Lady Moon, I miss you so much. Hey, David. I know you probably driving that big old truck. Everybody, I love you all. And let's get into it. I'm first gonna say, hey Sammy. Hey, I know people are still coming in. Um, Dane, you already have the link. He may jump on. He has actual. There's only two people that have managing access, deliberate, and that's Smoke and Dane. They can just pop up on my panel at any time. So don't be surprised if they just pop up because they can even start a live from my channel. That's the access. It's only those two people. That's Dane and Smoke. They have like literal access to my channel to come on or come off. And if anybody acts stupid in the chat, the moderators do have the wrenches. I do have managing moderators. So even if you have a wrench and you're mean to me, you shouldn't be mean to me if you have a wrench. But they have the capability, my managing moderators, I do have those. They have the capability to put you out even if you have a wrench, and I would know to remove that wrench from you. Okay, I'm just trying to be genuine. But let me first say this. I have to do this, and I think the world needs to know this. I grew up in the hoods of Bridgeport, Connecticut, as a child. And I grew up in a combat community coming up as a young woman. And I understand how I have to communicate with the people in my community. My channel is based on our history as a people and getting our people to convert their behaviors from negative behaviors into positive behaviors, because society found a successful way to divide us all, whether it's by religion, whether it's by family, whether it's by community organizations. They found a way to keep one specific group of people here on the mainland separate from each other, where they don't know how to come together and um, build communities, strong communities. And a lot of that is blamed on the churches because even the churches are divided. we gave, as a people, our ancestors gave a lot of power to our churches, whether they're Christian, whether our families were Christians or not. They gave all the power in formulating our community to the Christian churches. And that has been the biggest divide in our community, because the Christian churches wanted to convert the behaviors of our men, even whether their behaviors were positive or negatives. They wanted them to be these changed individuals, and they wanted them to act in ways according to, may I say, professional society. They wanted our men to change how they were, to speak and act like foreigners that came over here, that designed this role called professional behaviors. And a lot of our ancestry grandfathers left their families, the mothers and the families, because the women catered more to the Christian leaders, and the Christian leader, like pastor, had precedent over their husbands. Christian women began clinging to the teachings of pastors, what broke up a lot of families, because our grandfathers say, I'm not acting like that. That's not how I am. I'm not talking like that. That's not how I talk. Okay. So a lot of us were raised with that mentality based on our fathers. Okay. And some of our mothers too. And it got worse and worse as we moved along. And because of the way we spoke and carried ourselves, we were more so forbidden to work in professional communities when it comes to corporate management, things of that nature. Now, what happened in our community is someone like myself, straight from the hood, grow up, chose to go to school, like many of us did, thousands of us did, and get jobs and work in corporate management offices and be professional. We, women like myself and men like myself, have what we call this dual relationship with our community. Meaning, when I'm in the professional world, I'm professional. The way I speak and carry myself in the professional world is not the way I carry myself around my family, my community, and my friends. Because we had to be dual, have this type of dual behavior, we did not want to lose the love and respect from our community, who did not choose the lifestyle, economic lifestyle, like a lot of us did. They don't use the choice words that we use. So when I say dual, is I know how to go to work, and many of us have mastered this. I know how to go and work in a business office, speak professionally, act professionally, and do my work professionally. And I also know how to clock out, come back home, and be comfortable in my home, and be able to communicate with my family and friends and community in a manner in which they're accustomed to me speaking to them. So we have two ways here. When you go in the corporate world, you're going to speak professionally, where everybody is going to be professional and on their good behavior, and, just be professional in their professional roles. But our families say, oh, don't come home talking to me. And we all went through this as children. Bottom line, I don't know who you think you talking to like that, but you going to talk to me, and you going to look at me in my face and my eyes. All of us hear this. I ain't raised no damn white boy and girl. You speak to me the way I speak to you. So we had to maintain the behaviors and the manner in which our families would accept us versus how we're accepted in a corporate world. And when in our community, when you lose the communication contact with your people in the manner in which they're used to seeing you talk, well, you ain't talk that way when we was in kindergarten, preschool, first grade, high school. Now all of a sudden, you don't know your community and you too good. I didn't want that placed on my shoulders. So I made sure that I maintain how my people accept me, because I never want to be in a position where the people in my community don't accept me and don't see me and, label me as Miss Goody Two Shoe or Miss High Profile or whatever. So you get the drift. And with that comes my teaching style. People don't like my teaching style. They don't understand. I'm not at work, first of all. I'm in my community doing my community work, having my people listen and vibe with me. And the YouTube community and my newspaper and our tribe is the way that I handle that and I go about it. So when I'm speaking with my community on my YouTube channel, I expect people who I did not ask to subscribe to my channel. And I'm going to speak in a way that my community understands me. I expect people that I did not tell to subscribe to my channel to back the fuck up, stay out my personal life, leave me alone, and let me work and deal with my community the way I'm comfortable and accustomed to dealing with them, because they understand me. You have personal views of how I deal with my community, regardless if my audience is very large. Okay, yes, I do have I'm a popular person, so I'm going to have a large audience. And a lot of people relate with me across the states and in other countries. So when I am on my YouTube channel, this is my part-time job. This is my life. Okay, this is my life. I love my people. I love meeting new people from other cultures and other countries, because it helps strengthen my historical education. Because a lot of people from other countries know a lot about my history that I don't know. And they have historical information in their country about my ancestors. I'm American Indian. I love who I am. I stand on who I am. So with that being said, I hope people understand where I'm coming from. When I am here, I don't use corporate, okay? I don't use corporate ways of dealing with my people. Number one, I have an MSW. So I have a degree where I can diagnose people, where I understand mental health conditions, okay? And I understand how to interact with people with those conditions. A lot of people in our community have conditions that they have not been diagnosed with. And then a lot of our people in our community have conditions that they should not have been diagnosed with. Oftentimes, okay, because the people in our community come from such a combat in a wild shooting zone, that doesn't mean that you're bipolar. So a lot of our people in my community are misdiagnosed with being bipolar and schizophrenic and all this other stuff, when in fact, it's just post-traumatic stress, which is totally different from all those other conditions. A lot of our people suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, and that could come from being a child and witnessing somebody getting shot repeatedly and growing up in a community where you're in your house, in your apartment in the community, and you hear gunshots. Okay. Bullets come in your house. So you're traumatized. Bullets are going in your wall while you're laying in the bed sleep, because they built these little shitty communities for the inner city poor folks, as I may say, in my community. And bullets fly through. You have to get on the floor. So you've been living a combated lifestyle, which causes post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay. So again, the way I deal with my people using my MSW is not going to be the way that a social worker that works for a state is going to interact with my people. I will never be a social worker for any state because the skill that I have, I use the tools of being and having an MSW, but I refuse to be controlled on how I will apply those tools to my community. Thanks for the master's degree in that. I appreciate it, but I understand my community and I have a different way of how I'm going to use my MSW to connect with my people. And I want to be comfortable with it. I don't want rules and policies and guidelines over me because I understand my people because I live the exact same life that they did. And I understand what I need to do to transition my people's mindsets because I had to transition my own. I'm the best experience. I had to transition what we were taught by our parents, great grandparents, because our lives consist of their experience with foreigners and how they were treated. But because I was born in later years, I didn't experience those things. For example, my grandmother, who was born in 1931, they experienced sitting on the back of the bus. They experienced Jim Crow laws. They experienced Walter Plecker laws. I didn't experience that because things changed as we move forward. In fact, I was only 1 year old when Martin Luther King was assassinated and Malcolm X. So I was born, I'm Generation Z. I'm after the boomers. So I didn't experience the life that the boomers experienced. Opportunity became more available as the years progressed, as we're in Generation Z now and alpha, beta, whatever. What we went through looks ancient. For example, when I was in elementary school, we had typewriters, and they were those things that we learned ASGFGKHL. When somebody from Generation Z sees a typewriter, they're like, what the hell is this? It's like ancient to them. To a Gen Z baby, like, what the hell? Because everything is digital and with the thumb with them, with the cell phone. And we're able to handle things in our own eras. People often try to change the way that I explain things and try to regurgitate it to their understanding. So, like, for example, when I'm saying the boomer generation, that's my mom generation. That's not being racist. This is why I say stay the fuck off my channel, because you don't understand my audience and my people and me. This session is not for you. That's not being racist. That's a study by the Pew Research, the generational breakdown of errors. And you get these people that come and twist what the fuck you're saying and try to make it seem like you're the racist. I'm like, no, the first thing you should be minding your fucking business, because this is my YouTube business. Okay? That's the first thing you have to understand. And coming in the middle of a conversation and not understanding where I'm getting my information from, it's not something I made up. Everybody in the fucking world knows what the silent generation is, the boomer. Listen, must we go through these things? And I want this to be publicly seen, because then they'll see where I'm coming from and they understand why I deal with my people and why I have 1,034 people watching, because they all understand. Some of them don't. So if this is educational for you, take notes. Okay? And you can keep your personal opinions to yourself, because this is how Wire is helping communities across the 50 states. I represent YN Nation in my newspaper when I'm on here. I'm on my job, my part-time job. And it's Sunday. Happy Sunday. So I really thought that was important to say. Really. Always, if you don't like my channel, never watch this bitch, because I'm only going to speak truth, and I have sources. The segments I do turn into newspaper articles. So today's segment, which is going to be long, y'all, because it's Sunday. It's going to be long. I got like 80 slides, and I'm going over the ones I went last time. It's going to really sharpen your lens, and you'll be able to relate to all those stories that Granny was talking about that you didn't really understand because your identity was so hidden from you. So without that being said, and I got my 25-minute, almost 30-minute point across to on viewers. Hey, Black Wolf. Hey, sweetheart. Now I'm going to move into the segment. So give me, hey, Sylvia, how you doing? Give me like 30 seconds to take a sip of water, and the slides are up. And we're going to go through these slides, and we're going to go through all 80 of them. All right. And I'm not leaving. This is going to be a great segment now that you all can hear me. So give me a minute, and we're going to get right into these slides. Give me a little minute. Okay, my loves, let's get it. Let's get right into it. Reclassification is a hell of a drug, and we're going to learn why. You got to understand what happened to people. Oftentimes, foreigners that come over here, immigrants or whatever, they confuse us oftentimes with Africans. I don't hate Africans, but I know they don't like me, but that's all good and well. I don't care. Okay? I really don't. But what I don't like is to be confused with being one, because I'm not African. I'm American Indian. I don't know anybody from Africa. Wait a minute. Let me put this down for a minute, because this needs to be, we need to keep it real. Here in America, Indians were always on this landmass, whether it was in the South, North, South, any parts across the 50 states, there were Indians occupying this land. They didn't come here. They were already here. And that's a fact. I'm talking about mainland North American Indians where the United States company sits. There was always Indians here. I am American Indian, and that's a fact. I am not African. I don't know one African language. I don't derive from them. I'm not a descendant of them, and I do not come from a family with slavery history. I'm not a descendant of slaves at all. I cannot even prove that, and neither can nobody else. My family didn't come here on slave ships. Okay, the story that this false story that goes around in American history, it's up to us to fix our history. We cannot allow foreigners who are immigrants, who descend from immigrants that come here and write and tell our story. Nor will I have people who are of African descent write about my history and me not correct it. Because first of all, we're not the same people. We might have brown skin, but we're not the same people. And that's not being racist, hateful, and anything. I don't care how the hell you put it. That's the same thing with the white race. First of all white people ain't Irish. Facts. All white people aren't Italians. All white people aren't French. They are all different people with the same shade of skin. But just because they're the same shade of skin don't mean they're all the same people. Same thing with Asians, Chinese people, Japanese, Laotian, Croatian, Laos, Vietnamese. They're all different types of Asians. They're not the same. So what I'm telling you is history, and college professors who have ancestry from Africa will not slunk me in and my family into an African American history, because that's not my history. And just because it's not my history don't mean that I'm hating and being racist. I know my history, and I know what was done to my ancestors here in North America. My grannies and grandpas were silenced about who they were. They were not allowed to speak about it. And if they did, they were killed, hung, burned out, whatever, by our own people who were Indians and other foreigners. Our history was silenced, and they wrote a story to say we all died of the Spanish flu, and that's not true. If all the Indians, most of them died of the Spanish flu, then how come all the fucking white people didn't die? You got to ask real questions. Other people will just believe that narrative. Christian churches had a lot to do with our history being silenced and erased. Yet we have the graves here, that cemetery graves that was formerly Indian territory. Our ancestors are in those graves. So our history speaks to us. We just have to wake up and listen to it and correct the errors so we can stand out from among people who identify as an immigrant. Okay? The Kunta Kinte story is cap. That is a fake story written by a white guy, where a black guy named Alex Haley stole from the white guy and rewrote it and tried to make it his family. That kind of shit. And people like Alex Haley are just like a lot of these college professors. Okay, the Kunta Kinte story. First of all, I don't have a Kunta Kinte story. I don't know who the hell that is. All I know is a black guy named LeVar Burton played as Kunta Kinte, and John Amos left Good Times to go and play as the older Kunta Kinte, and he got his foot chopped off. That story doesn't. That's not anything like my family history, and that's what happened to a lot of our people back in the 70s when that damn movie came out. Our people in my community as a child growing up in the 70s in Bridgeport, Connecticut, we didn't even know about Africans like that. To keep it a buck, we didn't. We learned about an African slave story when the movie Roots came out. Nobody was talking about Africans back then. The shit literally came out in the 70s. And we watched the movie. It was very sad. And we cried when they caught Kunta Kinte in chains and put him on a fucking ship. And that's when our grannies, a lot of our grannies across the state said, whoa, wait a minute. You ain't no damn African. You Indian. And they left it like that and didn't go any further. You ain't no African. So for some little young punk born in the millennial era, thinking they're going to come and tell me and call my granny a liar, my grandpa liars, and your ass was born in the late 80s and 90s, and you think you're going to come and tell me about my family history and you don't even know me? Get your ass out of here. You're worse. They are worse than a foreigner coming over from being a descendant from a whole nother country coming over here writing about my history. Okay, you're writing about African-American history. Fine, but that doesn't apply to me. I'm not African-American, and maybe it applies to African-Americans because that's not me. I have no proof of being an African-American. But what I do have is proof of being a damn American Indian, and I'm proud to be an American. I'm proud to be an American. The best feeling in the world for our people is understanding who they are and that they're actually standing on their own land that they've always originated from for thousands and thousands of years. They didn't come here. You must be out your damn mind if people with brown skin, the only country they can come from is Africa. You out your damn mind. And they can come from any country in the world originally except for America. Are you out your damn mind? That's not gonna work. And who said that? Foreigners came over here and said that. Nah, not happening, boo-boo. We have too many records about our history. We just have to put the story together. We got to stop allowing people to put our stories together, our historical stories together. While it has always been a collective effort to erase us as a people, fine, but you can't if the people are still here. We're in different times now. Okay, we're in very different times. We're not in the 1700s, 1600s. We're literally in 2025, about to be 2026. So, without further ado, understand that when I'm speaking to my community across the 50 states, and they all understand me. So let's get it with the lesson. Let's read about our history, you guys. And each individual person has a history here. You just have to understand and wipe out everything that you were taught by foreign people. Pastor was even threatened. Okay? You got to wipe out everything you were taught in order to understand who you are. You've been brainwashed. You were erased on paper. But the facts are still here, which is the beautiful thing. So let's get into it now. Reclassification is a hell of a drug. And it is. Let's get it. Who I am and why this matters. This is going to be a long segment, so y'all better get y'all tea. Keep your headphones on so you don't miss nothing. Get your hot tea, your coffee. I already had my coffee. I am a brown-skinned American Indian from right here in North America, where the United States is established. I am not a member of a federally recognized tribe, and I don't need to be to know who I am, nor will people who are not originally from here, who don't know my family history, will impose their personal opinions and racial classification systems on me or my family. But I am seeing something dangerous happening in our communities, and it's time for a reality check. Facts. So when I say that I will not allow people who are not originally from here, who should really only be paying attention to their own goddamn family history instead of mine, place their racial classification systems on me or my family. You will not do that. And it's up to you, the individual, to check that shit at the door. You don't allow foreign people come over here and their descendants from foreign people that came here place a label on you and your damn family. They can go back and do that in their own country where their asses originated from. Bottom line, you got to keep it above. For real. Let's get it. Oh, now, so we're going to go to 1828 and read Noah Webster's description in 1828 in his Noah Webster dictionary on who in America, who is an American? American, the definition, Indian of America, originally applied to Aboriginals. That's my family. Aboriginals or copper-colored races. The reason why it's brown, written in brown, because I'm copper-colored. Found here by Europeans, but now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. Because after the Revolutionary War and during, when they first came over here, colonial people, they came over here and they had babies with Indians. They integrated. So now, not only does an American definition apply to the copper color races that were here before the colonizers got here, now it applies to Europeans born here, because a lot of them had babies with Indians. Or may I say Aborigines. So now, when we look at our colors, copper, and by the way, I'm hearing they're getting rid of the penny. Y'all need to look that up. That's crazy. This is copper. This is what copper colored is based on Noah Webster's dictionary description. You go look up copper, it's brown. So when they came over here, they seen copper colored people. I am copper colored. I'll be damned if my skin tone does not fit the description of copper colored. We come in many shades. People are angry and don't like to they don't like to admit to the truth. They don't like it. They hate it. And this is and I'm sorry, get over it. We're taught about other people's history in our school books, but we were not allowed to learn about our own history. So today I'm teaching it, and I instill that in my daughter, my grandchildren. We have to break the yoke. Do not allow people who are not you break the yoke in your own families. Hey, Beverly. Origins of the term American Indian. The label Indian was a misnomer allegedly introduced by Christopher Columbus in 1492, believing he had reached the East Indies in Asia. Columbus referred to the indigenous people he encountered as Indios, the Spanish word for Indians. Remember, Christopher Columbus was Spanish, so he spoke in his tongue. Despite the geographic error, meaning he was not in East Indies, he was in America, being quickly recognized, the term Indian persisted in European and later American usage for centuries. In the 1960s and the shift toward Indian American. In the 1960s and 1970s, amid the civil rights movement and a growing push for indigenous self-determination, scholars and activists began advocating for terminology that better reflected the indigenous people's origins and sovereignty. Indian American emerged as a politically and culturally sensitive term, emphasizing that these communities were the original inhabitants of the land known as the United States. Current usage and prefaces. Both Indian American and American Indian are still used today, and prefaces vary. Some individuals and tribes prefer American Indian, especially in legal and governmental contexts, where the term is still widely used in treaties and federal law. Others favor Indian American for its broader inclusivity and avoidance of colonial mislabeling. Increasingly, many indigenous people prefer to be identified by their specific tribal affiliation. Example, the Navajo, Lakota, Cherokee, rather than pan-ethnic terms. Hello, DJ. Census treatment of American Indians. Before 1924, most Indians were not considered U.S. citizens unless they had individually naturalized or were recognized under specific treaties. The census often included Indians living on reservation or in tribal communities, or listed them separately. In 1924 Indian Citizenship Act, the law granted U.S. citizenship to all Indians born in the United States. However, even after this, census enumerators often continue to classify people as Indian only if they lived on reservations or were visibly recognized as tribal members. Many Indian families living in towns, farming communities, or outside reservations were instead recorded as colored or Negro. Now you got to understand this, and I'm going to read that again because you need to understand how the erasure of this came into play. Reclassification. Okay. However, even after this, census enumerators often continued to classify people as Indian only if they lived on the reservations or were visibly recognized as tribal members. So when the census enumerators went around, if you were only put as an Indian on the census sheet if you lived on a reservation. But when you didn't go to Oklahoma, we didn't get there yet. After Walter Plecker's threat, many Indians living in towns, farming communities, or outside reservations were instead recorded as colored or Negro. And that's how that got on the census. Erasure Automatic erasure. If your ass was not on the reservation, all right, you're gonna be a colored or a Negro, and that's what happened. And that's factually true because listen, this is factually true. All right, let me just take this down for a minute. It's factually true because when you look back at how they tracked us, Indians that were not on the reservations, the result was on our birth certificates. And when we go and pull our grannies, like birth certificates, marriage certificates, census sheets, death certificates, in the category of race, it was either colored or Negro. So that's where that comes from way back then. So that's how you keep track of your family. I don't like the word usage. Well, colored is funny to me. And I don't like Negro either. That's like hardcore. Okay. So it is what it is. And I pulled that information on my family. I'm like, my God, to have to live in those years to be identified as that. Like today, like with the time change, you say those type of words to people and they flip out on you because they're very offensive. Word usage. It is very offensive. Indian and colored and Negro, it's very offensive. So going back to what originally they had my family classified on prior to Walter Plecker and Andrew Jackson. We are able to fix that this year. I don't got to be worried about being hung in a fucking tree somewhere swinging. We're not in those days anymore. We're able to correct our true identity with the paper trail that you have that says Negro, colored, and all this shit on your documents. Thank God my mom is still alive, because I had her to, say, hey, Mom, you're going to have to come with me down here so we can fix this shit. So we did. So understand that. Now you're going to get all this information in the January, our first newspaper of 2026. All these slides will become the newspaper, and you'll be able to click on the resources and everything where I'm getting this information from. So you need to hold that. So it's important so you can fix your history. I don't want to die with the racial labor as nigger. I don't care what you say. Negro means nigger to me. And color. I remember when I worked in Bridgeport in the nursing home, it was called Golden Heights Health Center in Bridgeport. And this white man, he was a patient there. He was so sweet. He was funny too. He had what you call tunnel vision. So he came all the way up to me in my face. He was this close. And he loved to talk and tell stories, and I loved to listen to them. And he came all the way up to me with his eyes squinched, and he looked, because he had tunnel vision. He said, because he wanted to tell me a colored story. He said, are you colored? So that he was a older generation white man, because that was the terminology used in his era. He was the silent generation. He was before the boomers. And I just thought it was so funny. So, I didn't get offended at all. I just thought it was funny, me being born Gen X. And he walked up to me and came way up to my face. He was like this close. And I was younger. I was like 25. He said, now, I had a question to ask you, ma'am. I said, yes. He was all in my face. He said, now, are you colored? And I just laughed. I said, okay, yes, I am. So he wanted to tell me stories. But anyway, it is what it is. Let's move on, y'all. So now we're in 1930 census instructions. Enumerators were told to mark IN for Indian only if a person was considered full-blooded and living in tribal conditions. If someone had mixed ancestry or lived outside a reservation, they were often classified as colored or Negro. This practice erased Indian identity in official records and forced many into categories that didn't reflect their heritage. AKA later in 1988, African American. I'm like, whoa, what? Yeah, Jesse Jackson did that, but we're not there yet. We're in 1930 now. Let's go, y'all. So these cute little boobies look like me and two of my brothers. Yeah, I'm a daughter with 12 brothers. And remember, President Andrew Jackson ordered in 1830 the Trail of Tears forced removal, federal power. In 1830, unless you lived on a reservation or were enrolled in one of the civilized tribes, now that was a foreign government decision of the United States. A foreign government decision. People who are not of you, that are descendants of people who came here, said, okay, you're going to be this. The U.S. government did not recognize you as an Indian if you didn't go to Oklahoma. If you stayed on your little farmland and you didn't go to Oklahoma and you just stayed there like my family did, and I can't wait till we get to that portion. That's going to be the fun part. The federal government didn't recognize you in 1830, and that was Andrew Jackson. All right, let's get it. Just because you're not on a reservation doesn't erase that you are not an Indian. Racial classification systems. It is true that in U.S. history, racial classification systems were imposed by law and policy. American Indian groups and mixed heritage communities were reclassified over time in census or legal records. These classifications were often arbitrary and used to enforce segregation or deny rights. For example, one-drop rules and rigid census categories erased complex identities. But legally, Black, formerly Indians, coloreds, and Negroes, as we just read, Americans are recognized as U.S. citizens under the 14th Amendment. That constitutional protection cannot be undone by past reclassification. Many dark-skinned indigenous peoples of the Americas before European contact, many indigenous people across the Americas, including the region now known as the United States, had dark skin tones and features that European colonizers later associated with African ancestry. There it is. And this is true. European colonizers. Oh, he's brown skinned. You're brown skinned. Okay, so definitely you are from Africa some damn where. That was it. That was the most arrogant and ignorant and racist thing to do to a people that were already here before your ancestors came. This led to widespread racial misclassification, erasure of tribal identities, and confusion about lineage that persists today. North American U.S. region, tribes in the Mississippi Valley, Florida, and the Carolinas had members with dark skin and features that led to racial reclassification, especially during the 18th and 19th centuries when census and legal systems collapsed tribal distinctions into Black or colored. Now, when we're talking 18th and 19th centuries, we're talking the 17 and the 1800s. Are y'all with me? Give me one, or some fire, so I know that you're with me and you're listening in. I don't want you to get no automobile accidents. I know a lot of y'all is truck drivers and stuff, and you're listening, and I'm helping your day go by fast. All right, I see you. Awesome. Let's keep it moving. Now, dark-skinned indigenous peoples of the Americas before European contact. We're in the Caribbean islands. We're in Central and South America and Southeastern North America. So let's get it. In the Caribbeans, they had the Taino and Kalinago, Carib, indigenous islanders with dark skin and strong features, often confused with Africans by European observers. All right? So when you see Taino and Kalinago, we talking about Puerto Ricans, y'all. We talking about Puerto Ricans. We talking about Dominicans. We talking about all the Latino countries in South America and Central America. And they're not all dark-skinned. Some of them have more of their white European features. Hey, Chief. And that's a fact. I know it because I got them in my family. But I claim all the blood on my tree. I don't care. Like I told the brother yesterday, he was cracking up. I don't care if somebody in my family who came out with more of their white European features looked at like President Bush, and he an Indian, but he just came out more of his white skin, look more like white Europeans. That's my goddamn bloodline. Because what? Because they look white, I'm not supposed to claim my white bloodline? Oh, hell no. That ain't the way it go in my family. I don't disown a family member because they look different from me, but they got their blood, my damn blood running in their veins, my ancestors' blood. So that don't go down in my end. Some other people act like that, but I'm not racist and I don't play that shit. If your ass is white and you look like the goddamn Prince of fucking UK, you're my goddamn relative. Because we have the same great grannies. So get your ass out of here. And I'm claiming my bloodline, whether they look like Prince Harry or whether they look like fucking James Brown. If our great granny is the same, we bloodline family and we Indians. So then we get to Central and South America, the OWENS. Often depicted it with broad noses and full lips. Some scholars argue their features resemble West African traits, okay? Though they were indigenous to Mesoamerica. But that's all well and good. That's cool and all in the cootie booty. But they from America and they Indians. And you're not going to put them in Africa. So what? They resemble Africans. You got some Italians that look Irish. You got some Irish that look French. So same thing here. Just because we look like or resemble a West African, that don't mean that's who we are. Get the hell out of here. I'm Indian, baby. I'm from America. This is my land, and I love to be an American. And I'm proud to be an American. And I want them to make America great again. Amazonian tribes. Many had dark skin and tightly coiled hair, living in dense forest regions with little contact until much later. Southeastern North America. You got the Yamasee, the Guale, the Appalachee, and others. Gulf Coast tribes with darker pigmentation and features that colonists often label Negro or mulatto, especially when resisting assimilation. Facts. This is how the shit happened. Dark-skinned indigenous people of America is continued. Black Americans today are U.S. citizens. Their nationality is American. Even if some ancestors were Indian and later reclassified, that does not change their current legal status. They cannot be deported. Deportation applies only to non-citizens. If someone has indigenous ancestry, They may also have tribal citizenship, but that coexists with U.S. citizenship. It does not replace it. The lie. Here's the lie. You can just remove your citizenship and be free. Some black people are telling indigenous black folks to renounce U.S. citizenship and live off the land. They claim this will make you sovereign, immune from U.S. law, or undeportable. Well, that's a fucking lie because number one, you don't have to do that as an Indian, American Indian. I'm using who I am today. Or a black who has not recognized their damn original identity. This is a lie. Because if that was the case, it didn't fucking work when Andrew Jackson, and we're gonna get that. And you're gonna learn why. You don't need to pay for that, do that shit. See, you have people that want to take you out of the status you're in because they envy it. Because they know who the fuck you are and they want to put you in a position they're in. That's called misery loves company. Don't do it. I'm telling you. This is false, and it's not just wrong, it's legally dangerous. Citizenship and deportation. Let's break down citizenship for Black indigenous peoples in the United States. Black indigenous people in North America today are U.S. citizens. We already read that. What if we renounce our U.S. citizenship with another nationality? Stateless. The U.S. cannot deport you, but you just be stateless, running around with no protection or no nothing. The truth, what happens is you renounce your citizenship. First of all, when you renounce your citizenship, you got to be outside the United States when you do that shit. You can't do it here. So anybody teach you that you do it here, they're telling you a damn lie. And why would you do that anyway? That would be dumb as hell. Your ancestors fought in the Revolutionary War. Yes. Your ancestors fought in the Civil War. Why the fuck would you do that? Don't let somebody whose family was not part of our wars over here tell you what the hell to do. Tell them to take their monkey asses somewhere else. So when you're announcing it, first of all, they're telling you a lie. You must do it formally outside the United States before a consular officer. Look that up. Thank you, sweetie pie. Go forward. If you stay in the U.S. without legal status, you are now subject to deportation, even if you were born here. And here's the kicker. You can't be deported anywhere because you're stateless. That means no passport, no legal protections, no country to claim you, possible detention or surveillance. Just like that bottom of picture in a jail, that's where your ass gonna be. Key responsibility. So I'm going to tell you, now you're going to learn who a consular officer is. Consular is a government official stationed at a consulate who assists with diplomatic and administrative duties related to their home country's citizens and interests abroad. Here's what they typically do. Visa and immigration services, review and process visa applications for travel, work, or immigration. Interview applicants and assess eligibility based on laws and policies. Assistance to citizens abroad. Help citizens who are arrested, hospitalized, or face emergency overseas. Issues passports, birth certificates, and other official documents. Protection of national interests. They monitor local conditions and report on issues affecting their country's citizens. Support trade, tourism, and cultural exchange initiatives. Notarial and legal services. Perform notarial acts like a notary public, certifying documents, or administering oaths. Assist in legal matters such as child custody, deaths, or estate issues. So, yeah. Where consular offices work. Consular offices are posted at embassies or consulate around the world. While embassies are in capital cities and handle broader diplomatic relations, consulates are often in major cities and focus on citizen services and visas. The history why some of us were reclassified. Many dark skinned indigenous peoples who were reclassified as Black or Negro by colonizers and census takers. That doesn't erase our indigenous roots, but it does mean it does mean we were cut off from tribal recognition. So that's what that meant, because we didn't go to Oklahoma. We stayed on our own big farmlands in the South, North, or wherever. But like it says, that doesn't erase your indigenous roots, but what it does means we were cut off from tribal recognition. That's all. That's why many of us are indigenous by blood and land, not by paper. Understand this. The reality, you can be indigenous and still be a U.S. citizen. Tribal citizenship is not required to know who you are. U.S. citizenship does not erase your identity. It protects your rights. You can be indigenous, sovereign in spirit, and still use your legal status to protect your freedom. The warning: don't let clowns lead you off a cliff. People pushing statelessness are not lawyers, not historians, and not accountable. They're playing with people's lives, especially the vulnerable. Don't let anyone convince you to give up your rights in the name of fake sovereignty. Bottom line. You are the adult and you need to make that decision. Smash that like button, y'all. Know your rights, citizen sovereignty, and truth. Final word: know who you are and know the law. I'm not here to tell you who to be. I'm here to make sure you don't get played. You can be proud, indigenous, and powerful without giving up your legal protection. Stay grounded, stay smart, stay free. That's all I'm saying. Let's keep it going. Now, before the 14th Amendment, Black leadership without federal recognition. The Black governors and tribal chiefs were one and the same people. Because remember, they changed their name, their names. They went from being these Indians to being Black and colored and Negro. We already know that. So the Black governors, and this is in Connecticut to be real specific, the Black governors and tribal chiefs were one and the same people. It's the same shit to the Pequots. Before 1868, Black people were denied federal citizenship, yet they governed. They led communities, held authority, and shaped local life through roles as governors, tribal chiefs, and organizers. After 1868, the Constitution finally caught up. With the ratification of the 14th Amendment, Black Americans entered federal office, carrying forward traditions of leadership that had long existed outside the recognition of Washington. So you got to understand, the 13th colony expanded itself into 50 states. And the Indians on the land were not part of that. That was colonial stuff on this land. So it took a while before these Indians were invited into the U.S. system. And that was via the 14th Amendment. Understand that. Yo, give me fire if you understand that now, because it's telling you when these Indians came in, these Black ones. And remember, these same Black ones are the ones who fought in the Revolutionary War to get the British off of their subjects' asses. They took over the British colonies. Their subjects that came here. Good. I'm glad you guys understand how it's making sense. History. All right. So let's go. Federal denial versus local sovereignty. Dred Scott. That is like the famous case. First of all, he wasn't from no damn Africa. There's no history. He was an Indian. Indians were enslaved over here. Hey, buddy. Indians were enslaved. They were enslaved. Ruled that black people were not U.S. citizens and had no standing in federal court. And that's true. I just read it to you. You see, they had black governors, but those was Indians caring for their own community of people. But they weren't part of the United States. Hello? Does this make sense now? Let's go, y'all. But this applied to federal citizenship, not to local, tribal, or community governance. Now, at that time, the federal government wasn't dealing with these Indians, aka these black people who were not citizens. The federal government, they was not federal citizens. Let me read that again. Dred Scott versus Sanford in 1857 ruled that black people were not U.S. citizens and had no standing in federal court. Now, listen, let me show you how it makes more sense if you read it to what the original identity was. Dred Scott versus Sanford, because remember, they kept changing the Indians' identity. So now let's read it from this perspective and see how Dred Scott makes more sense. Because Dred Scott wasn't a black person, he was an Indian. Dred Scott versus Sanford in 1857 ruled that Indian people were not U.S. citizens and had no standing in federal court, and that's a fact. Now, when you replace Indian with black, because that's what it was changed from, we was changed so many times. Now Dred Scott makes more sense to you. Give me fire if you understand that. Does now Dred Scott make more sense to you now? All I did was replaced black with Indian, because now Dred Scott makes more sense. It makes more sense now when you put it to what it was. Well, wait a minute. What was black before it was black? What was a black identity before it was black? It was Indian, because they kept changing it. Remember, the Indians went from Indians to colored, Negro, Afro-American, black. They had all these different identities. So now, if you read it from what it originally was, Dred Scott versus Sanford ruled that in the federal government, you were a black. You were not an Indian if you were not on a reservation. Dred Scott was not on a reservation. Dred Scott versus Sanford ruled that Indian people were not U.S. citizens and had no standing in federal court. And that's true. So now it makes more sense. But this applied to federal citizenship, not to local, tribal, or community governance. Understand that. So in a state, he could be a governor, and that, because that's the states. The state said, okay, in my state, from what I read, and I'm not representing the state of Connecticut, but I can speak media. In my state, it says, in my state, we had black governors, and it's just so fucking funny when you read the story. And we had white governors. So we had a black election of governors and a white election of governors. And they said, you take care of the black people, and we'll take care of the white people. White folks back then did not want to deal with them damn Indians. Them Indians is still the same way today. No, we don't want to be their governor. You be their governor. Black communities in free states like Connecticut continue to elect their own leaders, hold court, and govern themselves. And that's a fact. And we're going to give it a bomb drop. So here we go. So here we go. with that census taking away the Indian's name, in order for you to come in the United States, you're gonna be a colored. You're not on the land. You're gonna be a colored or a Negro. That's what they did on the census. So you got your first colored senator and representatives. These men were the first federally recognized black legislators, but they did not emerge from nowhere. They stood on the shoulders of those earlier leaders that I just showed you, the governors, chiefs, and community builders who had already proven that black governance was real, resilient, and rooted in history. So they took off their little Indian garments and feathers, and now they got on suits like the colonizers want them to dress like them, or whatever. Or could have been the other way around. They were the real rulers and they just got conquered. But that's another story. Wait for A1 on that one. Let's get it. One of the most painful truths in American history, the deliberate erasure and reclassification of indigenous identity, especially for those with dark skin. Let's break it down clearly and truthfully. Why were they reclassified as black instead of Indian? Federal policy of racial simplification. The U.S. government and census takers use binary racial categories, black and white, to simplify population control. Anyone with dark skin doesn't even matter. Even if they were documented tribal citizens, was often reclassified as Negro, colored, or black. This was especially true for Eastern tribes who refused removal and stayed in places like Connecticut, Virginia, and the Carolinas. Because you got Indians that's like, no, fuck that. I'm not going to Oklahoma. I'm staying right here in my own land. And then you're going to see what happened to him. What? Andrew Jackson. Let's get there. 2, punishment for refusing removal. The tribes that refused to relocate to Oklahoma under the Indian Removal Act, Andrew Jackson, in 1830, were punished by being stripped of tribal status. Their lands were seized, and their people were reclassified as freedmen, black farmers, or free persons of color. This was a way to erase sovereignty and deny them federal recognition. I'm telling y'all, that's how it happened. Went back and dug the shit, but it's easy because the paperwork matches it. So this is very real. This is how it happened. Slowly, come on, let's keep going. 3, visual profiling by census takers. Census takers often ignore tribal affiliation and classified people by skin tone. If someone looked black, they were marked up Negro, even if their records, community, and ancestry said Indian. They didn't give a damn. This happened to Cherokee, Pequot, Lenape, and many Algonquin-speaking people. 4, political suppression of mixed identity. Leaders like Hiram Revels and Joshua Walls may have had indigenous ancestry, but the government only allowed them to be recognized as black. Why? Because indigenous identity came with land rights, treaty protections, and sovereignty, and the government didn't want to honor that. So they were labeled black farmers or freedmen to strip away their tribal. Understand this, y'all? Buried by federal policy. Their real identity was erased to fit the racial categories of the time. The sovereignty was denied even as they led communities and held office. Their land and legacy were stolen, and their descendants were told they were just black. Bottom line. This is what happened. The Indian Removal Act, 1830. Here we go. The act forced many Indian nations, Cherokee, Creek, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Seminole, the 5 civilized tribes, to relocate west of the Mississippi River, Mississippi, primarily to what became Oklahoma. The federal government created treaties and roads, like the Dawes Roads later on, to track tribal membership. These roads became the basis for federal recognition and land allotments. Now, who was left out? Non-civilized tribes. Many indigenous groups outside the 5 civilized tribes were not included in treaty or roads. Mixed communities. People of Indian ancestry who were reclassified as colored or black by state laws were excluded from tribal roles. This erased their indigenous identity in official records. Resistance and survival. Some indigenous communities refused removal, stayed in their homelands, and blended into local populations. Over time, census takers often labeled them free colored or black, even if they identified as Indian. They didn't care. The government said you're either black or you're either white. That's it. Consequences. Loss of recognition. Because they weren't on rolls, these communities lost federal acknowledgement as tribes. Legal erasure. Being classified as black or colored meant they were treated as African American under law, even if they had no African ancestry. Modern impact. Descendants today often struggle to reclaim indigenous identity because courts and the federal government rely on those old rolls and treaties as proof of tribal citizenship. But that's changed now. That's changed now. All changed. See, we don't live in these days anymore. It's changed now because now transgenders can be born, and they could be born a man, but they get their records changed to being females. So this is why I said today everything has changed. Citizenship and deportation. Black Americans today are U.S. citizens. Their nationality is American, even if some ancestors were Indian and later reclassified. That does not change their current legal status. They cannot be deported. Deportation applies only to non-citizens. If someone has Indian ancestry, they may also have tribal citizenship, but that coexists with U.S. citizenship. It does not replace it. Misclassified, but never erased. Cherokee identity beyond the census. South Carolina, early colonial period. In the early colonial period, Charleston, later Charlestown, later to now is Charleston, was the main foothold of English colonizers in South Carolina. The rest of the land was overwhelmingly controlled by indigenous nations. Charleston was the only stronghold at first. The rest of South Carolina was indigenous land, and colonizers only gradually expanded inland through conflict, alliances, and displacement of Indian nations. Early South Carolina, 16 to 1700s. Charlestown, founded in 1670, it became the capital and the primary English settlement. Indigenous control. And I picked South Carolina because this is where my ancestors ran off of, their farm. But let's keep going. Indigenous control. Outside Charlestown, most of the land was indeed held by Indian nations, including Catawba, Cherokee, Yamasee, and others. Colonial expansion. For decades, English colonists were confined to the coastal low country. Inland areas remained indigenous territory until later wars and treaties forced Indian displacement. Yamasee War 1715 to 1770, a major indigenous uprising against English colonists. It nearly destroyed South Carolina and showed how much power Indian nations still held outside Charleston. Cherokee and Catawba lands. These nations controlled vast areas of the interior well into the 18th century. Colonists didn't dominate those lands until after repeated wars and forced treaties. Charleston Row, it was the hub for trade, politics, and the slave trade. But the colony's research beyond the city was limited for decades. Early South Carolina 1600s, indigenous labor in colonial Charleston. Indigenous people in South Carolina were not only living in their own territories, but also working in Charlestown, which is Charleston, during the colonial period. Domestic and urban work. Indian men and women were employed in households, docks, and small trades in Charlestown. Colonists often relied on Indian labor for everyday tasks. And this is the fact. Indenture and enslavement. Some indigenous people were forced into servitude or outright slavery. The Carolinas were heavily involved in Indian slave trade in the late 1600s and early 1700s, exporting thousands of Indian captives to the Caribbean. Listen to me. Bombaclot. Listen, indenture and enslavement. Some indigenous people were forced into servitude or outright slavery. The Carolinas were heavily involved in the Indian slave trade in the late 16 to 17, early 1700s, exporting thousands of Indian captives to the Caribbean. Facts. Hey, hold up. Wait 1 second, y'all. That's a fact. A lot of the Indians in the Caribbeans, let's get it, St. Kitts, what's her name, the cute one, shine bright like a diamond. A lot of them, their ancestors came from the mainland, and they were shipped out to that land. They were shipped out. A lot of people, a lot of Indians on the mainland were shipped from here to the Caribbean islands because they're wilding. And plus, they needed work. They wanted to, cultivate those lands. So they shipped them out there. And that's a fact. That's why they look so much like us. So this big ass story, I'm telling you, you got to do history. A lot of the people that's in the Caribbean islands came from the mainland. They're Indians that were enslaved. And guess who put them out there? I'm going to slap you silly if you say, oh, the white man did that. No. Indian chiefs put a lot of Indians that was on the mainland in territories that they wanted to cede and sell to the colonists. And those Indians was fighting. They was wild. They was like, no, you ain't doing this. Just like we do today. And they said, all right, fuck it. You going to the island. Boing. Pushed them out there. So stop saying that white guys gathered you up and put your ass in. I know. It was the Indian chiefs because they were the overseers of the land. Let's get it. Cherokee, South Carolina, they was the main ones. So stop saying white people did this. I'm serious. This is the part of history. I'm telling you that you need to wake up and smell the coffee. It was the Indian chiefs that were doing business with the colonists when it came to the land and working with this government. Got a lot to learn about history. Let's get it. Alliance and trade. Certain Indian groups allied. Well, I'm telling you, listen, certain Indian groups allied with colonists and worked in Charleston as part of trade relationships, providing goods, services, or labor in exchange for European tools, weapons, and textiles. But then A1 is going to debunk some of that shit because I'll let him tell it. He got a story coming. Cultural presence. Indigenous people were visible in Charleston streets, markets, and households, even as the city became a hub for African slavery. Early South Carolina 1700s is continuing this. Indians did work in Charleston for colonizers at the same time Africans were being brought in, but there wasn't a lot. In fact, South Carolina was unique in that it ran two overlapping slave trades, the one involving Africans through Charleston and another involving indigenous captives taken from wars with local tribes. I keep telling you. These links are going to be accessible to you when I put it in the newspaper. So you can be like, I be goddamn. Indian slave trade. Indian slave trade in the Carolinas is often overlooked compared to the African slave trade. Historical records show that many Indian captives from South Carolina, Yamasee, Tuscarora, Creek, and others were exported through Charleston into the wider Atlantic world. Where South Carolina Indians were exported. Where? What did our Indian chiefs do? They were exported to Barbados, Jamaica, Bermuda, other Caribbean islands. Okay, we'll start with Barbados. One of the primary destinations, Indian captives were sold into plantation labor alongside Africans. Barbados was a hub in the English Caribbean, and Charleston merchants had strong ties there. Jamaica, another major market for enslaved labor. Indian captives from the Carolinas were shipped to Jamaica's sugar plantations. Bermuda, smaller numbers of Indian captives were sent here. Bermuda had a mixed labor force of Africans, American Indians, and indentured Europeans. Okay? Other Caribbean islands, records mention Antigua, St. Kitts, and the Bahamas as destinations. The Bahamas were also used as a redistribution point for captives. Now, when I went back and checked to see, like places like St. Kitts and Antigua and the Bahamas, they only had like one fucking reservation. All the rest were aboriginals to that soil. But I'll be goddamn. Like when I went to St. Kitts, and I'm like, oh my God, they only had one little reservation. And that could have been a couple who had 3 Indians working on their land or living in their house, being a maid or whatever. So don't get it twisted, because these islands ain't that big. And a lot of them only had like one plantation. Seriously. Here we go. Between the 1600s and early 1700s, thousands of American Indians were enslaved in the Carolinas. Many were exported to the Caribbean, while others were kept in Charleston or sold into household and plantations locally. The trade was so large that the historians estimate more American Indians were exported from Charleston in the late 1600s than Africans were imported during the same damn period. Y'all got to listen to this. Charleston was the hub, but the captives didn't stay there. They were shipped out to Barbados, Jamaica, Bermuda, and the Caribbean islands, where they were absorbed into the plantation economies. This is why descendants of American Indian peoples from the Carolinas can oftentimes be traced into Caribbean populations today. So y'all got to understand this is so important. Historical context of American Indians. The Great Migration, 1910s to the 1930s, is usually associated with American Indians leaving the South for northern cities like New York, Boston, and New Haven. American Indians also participated in this broader movement, seeking refuge from racial violence and better opportunities in northern industrial centers. Some South Carolina Indian families moved into urban Indian enclaves in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New York, where they joined existing indigenous communities. The hoods. Hello? We're still here, Pookie and Ray Ray. In the damn hoods. Still here. They just made you black. Hello. All right. So we getting it. Damn, we still got a lot of people watching. Woohoo. I love it. This is great, y'all. Let's get it. 40 more slides to go. American Indians' presence in South Carolina tribes such as the Catawba, Petey, and others maintained communities into the 20th century. Despite centuries of colonization, they continued farming and living in rural areas. Discrimination and violence. Indian families often face hostility from white neighbors and local authorities. Oral histories describe intimidation, arson, and forced displacement through these events were rarely recorded in official state documents, though these events were rarely recorded in official state documents. Why records are sparse. Erasure in census and legal documents. Many American Indians in the South Carolina were classified as colored or black in official records, which obscures their identity in migration statistics. Local suppression. Incidents of violence against Indian families were often not prosecuted or formally recorded, leaving oral tradition as the main source of evidence because, number one, they weren't U.S. citizens. Number two, which meant they didn't have the protections. They didn't have the protections until they became citizens. Overlap with African migrant data. Because American Indians were often lumped in colored categories, their northward migration is hidden with African voyage migrant data bullshit. Facts. Even though the Africans didn't get here today, but I'm just going to stop right there. 1600s to 1800 records used Negro, mulatto, colored, or black. Indigenous people were often mislabeled as colored or mulatto if they weren't recognized as Indian by the government. Early 1900s, Jim Crow era, colored was the dominant term in census records, legal documents, and everyday language. American Indians in South Carolina and elsewhere were frequently classified as colored in official records, erasing their tribal identity. Mid-late 1900s, Negro widely used until the Civil Rights era. Black became the preferred term in 1960s and 70s. 1980s onward, African American gained popularity as a cultural and political identity term, emphasizing heritage and connection to Africa. Jesse Jackson's goofy ass and Obama. They helped erase your shit. Even if you was Indian. But I'm like, oh, hell no, you don't. The little poppy-eyed guy from down south some damn where. How you, no, you're not going to give me a race identity when I'm damn near 26 years old in the 1980s? Oh, wait a minute. I was 88. I was like, yeah, I was like 20 something. How the hell are you going to do that? I don't know him. You're not my representative of my state. Who the hell you be? Can't do that. Why African American didn't exist then? The U.S. government and society weren't interested in documenting ancestry, only in enforcing racial categories. Many indigenous families in the South were lumped into colored or black even if they had no African ancestry. The term African American was coined much later to reclaim identity and heritage, but it wasn't used in the fucking 1920s and 30s. That's why you can't backdate, you scholars, right, in our fucking history, okay? You don't write a document and then backdate and put African American. That title didn't even exist until 88. I was a grown-ass woman in 88. Can't give me no racial identity. I'm a grown-ass woman and you not my senator. Get your butt out of here. That's what I'm saying. Y'all got to stand up to these damn leaders and stop voting they goofy asses in. Keep this in your hearts. In South Carolina during the 1920s, 30s, people were labeled colored or Indian, not African American. Can you understand this? You can't make this shit up. In South Carolina during the 1920s and 30s, people were labeled colored or Indian, not African American. Facts. The modern term didn't exist yet. It didn't exist. This is what I'm saying. When you read in documents and it's relating back to the 1700s, if you see African American, you need to throw that shit in the garbage because that terminology didn't exist in the 16 and 1700s. Neither did that identity. So throw the fucking book down. You know it's a lie. You know it's some blue-collar black dude that's a Uncle Tom ass kisser that will take anything to erase you. Because first of all, when they come over here, they hate your ass. And they mad because they ain't you. But they come over here and try to be you. This is what I'm saying. It's a difference between Pookie and Ray Ray in the hood and a dude coming over here from Africa who's from a third world country, okay, with crusty feet. It's a difference between them two, automatically. The modern term, it didn't exist yet. Again, in South Carolina during the 1920s and 1930s, people were labeled colored or Indian, not African American. That fucking name did not exist until 1988. The modern term didn't exist yet. What we see in records is the government's racial classification system, which often erase indigenous identity by lumping Indians into colored. So listen, honey, when you see great grandma and great 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 grandma marriage records, census sheets, and birth certificates saying colored, her ass was Indian. Because that's what they did to the Indian. If you was an Indian not living on a reservation and you was in the United States and your identity and government paperwork had color, that's because your ass was Indian. They was not acknowledging you. They stripped you of your tribal. You was stripped of your tribal rule when you was in the United States. And yeah. Historical facts. South Carolina tribes, the Catawba, Petee, Waccamaw, and other Indian communities lived in South Carolina into the 20th century. That's the 1800s. Many were classified as colored in census record, which obscured their identity. Violence and displacement, 1920s and 30s. Indian families in the Carolinas faced racial hostility, land loss, and sometimes outright violence. Oral histories describe intimidation, arson, and forced removal. Economic pressures, 1940s through the 1970s, sharecropping collapsed, and agricultural decline pushed Indian families off their land. Jim Crow segregation laws denied them recognition as Indian, forcing them into the colored category, which limited rights and opportunities. Migration north. Many Indian families moved to places like Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, and New Haven, and New Jersey, leaving the South in the Great Migration. Northern cities often offered industrial jobs, relative safely, and communities where Indian identity could be maintained more openly. Now, if you remember back in the time, Good Times was out. That's the type of issues that James, the father, James Evan, was experiencing. They were acting out what happened to us in Chicago. That was where that movie was based. Why our history is overlooked. Erasure in records, because census and legal documents often label Indians as colored. Their migration north hidden inside African American immigration statistics, and that's a fact. Jesse Jackson did this shit. Oral tradition. Much of his history survives in family stories and tribal archives rather than government records, because we were not United States, we were not part of the United States government. Overlap with civil rights struggles. Indian migrants often joined Black communities in northern cities, blending histories of displacement and resistance. And that's a fact. Who were the Black loyalists? Now let's talk about the Black loyalists. During the American Revolutionary War, 1775 to 1783, thousands of enslaved Africans were promised freedom by the British if they escaped their patriot enslavers and joined the British cause. These individuals became known as Black loyalists, not only because they supported the British, but because they were loyal to the promise of liberty. What happened after the war? Well, after the British lost their war, they evacuated thousands of Black loyalists from the U.S. to places like Nova Scotia, Canada, Sierra Leone, West Africa, the Caribbean, especially Jamaica and the Bahamas. Many of these individuals brought records, family histories, and even enslaved people with them, especially those who had become slaveholders themselves or were entangled into colonial hierarchies. Why this matters. These migrations preserved written and oral history that challenged the dominant U.S. narrative. The archives in Canada, the UK, and Caribbean nations contain rich documentation of Black loyalist communities, their struggles, and their contributions. Their story shows how freedom, identity, and resistance were negotiated across borders, not just within the U.S. British rule. The United States as a constitutional nation didn't formally exist until 1787 with the ratification of the U.S. Constitution. Before that, the land we now call the United States was a patchwork of British colonies, and during the Revolutionary War, it was referred to as the 13 colonies or the continental states. So when we talk about Black loyalists being evacuated from the U.S., it's shorthand from the territory that will become the United States. Why this detail is so important: historical accuracy. It reminds us that the U.S. was not yet a unified nation during the Revolutionary War. It was still fighting to become one. Legal implications. The promises made by the British to Black loyalists were made under British colonial law, not U.S. law. Narrative control. Using U.S. too loosely can erase the colonial context and the fact that many Black loyalists were resisting both slavery and the emerging American nation that sought to preserve it. Entangled identities, indigenous sovereignty, and African misclassification in colonial South Carolina. The colonial history of South Carolina is often framed through the lens of African slavery and European settlement. Yet this narrative overlooks the critical role of indigenous nations and the frequent misclassification of native peoples as Africans. This essay explores how indigenous sovereignty shaped colonial dynamics, how physical similarities between Africans and Native Americans led to widespread misidentification, and how these distortions continue to impact historical memory. Indigenous sovereignty in the Carolinas. Prior to and during the Revolutionary War, South Carolina was home to powerful indigenous nations such as Catawba, Yamasee, and Cherokee. These groups actively negotiated, resisted, and shaped colonial expansion. Land was not freely available to settlers. It was contested, defended, and diplomatically managed by Indian leaders. Indigenous nations had a decisive say in who could operate on their land, including whether enslaved Africans could be brought in. Understand, I'm telling you, this is stuff it's so important for you to know. It was our chiefs who ceded land to the United States. They were very active, and it tells you Cherokee having the Cherokee and Catawba being the most powerful Indian nation in South Carolina, in the South, period. I'm telling you, I'm gonna read it again so you can understand. To stop this. Will listen. Let me. I got to stop this for a minute and cam up. This is the part where I say stop blaming the white man for these Kunta Kinte stories. It was our Indian chiefs that worked together with colonists, and they told them what land they could have and what land they'll cede to them because it was contested. And I'm going to read it again. So you can see how our ancestors were actively in this process of civilizing these here 50 states. So let's get it again. Indigenous sovereignty in the Carolinas. Prior to, and listen, y'all. You're going to know what your Indian chiefs did right here. This is just a small sentence of it. Prior to and during the Revolutionary War, South Carolina was home to powerful indigenous nations such as the Catawba, Yamasee, and Cherokee. These groups actively negotiated, resisted, and shaped colonial expansion. Land was not freely available to settlers. It was contested, defended, and diplomatically managed by Indian leaders. Indigenous nations had a decisive say in who could operate on their land, including whether enslaved Africans could be brought here. So, Mr. Forehead, Chaotic Truth, my ancestors let your goofy ass come over here. So you better control that hairline, bro. I'm telling you right here. It was contested, defended, and diplomatically managed by Indian leaders. Indigenous nations had a decisive say in who could operate on their land, including whether enslaved Africans could be brought in. So your ass need to bow down and shake and thank my ancestors for letting your goofy ass come over here, including you Somalians that hate me so much and you hate my ancestors because they were nice to let your ass come over here to learn how to purify your water, clean your ass, become doctors, education, period. You come here to learn. We don't go to Africa to college. They come here. My ancestors had to say so in letting you come here. Mr. Chaotic Truth. Let's get it, y'all. Misclassification and historical erasure. Due to physical similarities and colonial biases, many indigenous people were recorded as Negro or African in census data. Not African, though, because there's not one census sheet, no census sheet here in the United States On the mainland, that states African is either Negro, colored, or black, or mulatto, or Indian when you're on a reservation. Now, African, when you see African on census sheet, that's under British law, British colonial law. In Jamaica, I found it because they were under British control. And they were classified, there were some in there that were classified as Africans, literally. This misclassification erased Indian identities and contributed to the myth of mass African importation into regions where indigenous populations were dominant and resistant. The failure to distinguish between indigenous and African individuals has led to genealogical confusion and cultural erasure. So now, Obama, when you shake your Pink Panther looking ass, walking ass, because I'm scared. I'm sorry. Obama, to me, personally, my opinion, he looks like the Pink Panther and he walks like him. I remember watching the Pink Panther when I was a little girl, and that walk, Obama walks the same way, like the Pink Panther. Well, his ass is the one who erased earlier versions of our family, our people's racial identity, the colored, the Negro, from law. He did that shit. Obama. So he tried to make you an African like him. See, Obama's Kenyan. He can prove his African ancestry. I ain't got none. But Obama did that. But, that wasn't law. It was an executive order. And you do not have to select that on no application and forms. If you can't prove it, your ass should not be selecting it. Now, Chaotic Truth definitely can prove it because his hairline is way back here. A lot of them are. And you can look at their crusty feet because we have slippers and shit like that. Let me stop. Okay, here we go, y'all. Oh, come on. All right. So we read that. Let's keep going, y'all. We doing good. Why this classification was controversial. Racial integrity laws. In states like Virginia, officials like Walter Plecker aggressively reclassified American Indians as colored or Negro, erasing tribal identities and enforcing segregation. Now you got to understand, colored, the identity colored placed on our people, that identity went on for a lot of years, y'all. A lot of years. And then it moved into, remember, the Indian baseball teams. They changed it to the colored league or the Negro league because they were Indians. And the Indians could play some damn baseball. First, it was the Indian League. I showed y'all that a couple of years ago. They were really called the Indian League. And then they later in years, when they changed the identity again, it then became the Negro League. Legal and social consequences being labeled Negro rather than Indian could affect access to land allotments, tribal benefits, or recognition, legal status under Jim Crow laws. Now, understand this, you guys. When when we're talking about Negro rather than Indian, okay, this is the label that Obama removed. The Negro. That was during his administration. So what they did was went back, okay, all the Negroes, you're now all African Americans. You can't do that shit. You can't. That's the problem now. Now, let me tell you something. Let me show you the big difference. And I'm going to take this down for a minute. No Africans were ever that are here Africans, like when you see like what are they, Nigerians? What are some of the different types of Africans here? You got Nigerians, you got Somalians, um, different types of Africans. You got people from what is it? West Africa. Their birth certificates don't say Negro. If they got birth certificates in their country, it don't say Negro. It'll literally say Nigerian. That's how you know the difference between the Indians on the land and Africans that come in here. Because all the Indians got colored and Negro on their birth certificates. But Africans that come over here in our country, that are Africans, none of them are Negroes. They come over here, they literally have Nigerian or whatever type of African they are. That's how you know the difference between Pookie and Ray Ray and them. And this is why they don't like Pookie and Ray Ray. Because when they know foreigners come over here, they're already pre-warned about us or our people, which is really sad because not everybody's the way that we are described to be. So when they come over here, automatically they know who the damn Indian is. Because they're like, oh yeah, they call them coloreds and Negroes and niggas. They already prepped about who you are. So they know when they come over here, oh, they the niggas that, they're telling us about when we come over here. They already know who you are. They've been prepped. But the funny shit is when you look at TikTok from all countries, I'm talking about Asian countries, Africans, they all mimicking us. They got this one dude that don't wear no shirt with a big ass gold chain on. They calling him the African 50 Cent. He just walking around, but he look dirty and stinky. Ooh, honey, it's a hot mess. I know y'all seen him before. I be tired. And even in China, they got hip hop people in China being like niggas in America, the Pookies and Ray Rays. I'm just amazed when I see it. I like it. I'm like, wow, I never seen Chinese rappers. They over there going, yeah. I'm like, oh, this is too funny. They're acting like my nephews in the hood, but they're just in China doing it. And it just seems so cute. I mean, Asians, China, people in Asia, they have more of our features than Africans. I'm sorry. I see more of my people's features in Asian people. I'm keeping it a buck. Like my grandsons, I call them Chin and Wu because they look like brown-skinned Chinese dudes, brown-skinned Chinese dudes. And they get that from us. I have slanted eyes like Chinese people. And so do my grandsons. And it was funny, my sister took a picture of them in the Chinese restaurant yesterday because, they are just too comical. When they were very little and we were carrying them on our side and we went in the Chinese restaurant because my grandkids, all they eat is Chinese noodles. And I'm like, what the hell? So I bring them to Chinese restaurant in the hood and the Chinese man behind the counter, your son, baby, he father China. I'm like, no. It was so cute. And now when they go in there, they're 10 years old now. They're going to be 11 coming up in 2026. Now, when they see him, they just smile because they're like, wow, they're amazed at my grandsons. And my grandsons love Chinese food. Seriously. And they are too funny now that they talk more now. And, my daughter would have me laughing because, she told me, Ma, Kyle, when I got ready to leave, Kyle told me don't come back unless you bring back his Chinese food and his Coke soda. I just think it's just so cute. But let's keep going, y'all. Let's get it. And they tell me I'm not multicultural. Get your ass out of here. You don't even know me. You just hate me. All right. Now, why this classification was controversial? Oh, yeah, we read that one. Racial integrity laws, of course, like in Virginia. And Walter Pleckard's goofy ass, who happened to be unlived when he was coming out of work. I think there was an Indian that ran his ass over. Because if you look up how he got killed, I'm gonna laugh. And I said, I know that was probably a wild ass Pookie riding around in Virginia, and his ass came out the building and ran his ass over because he got hit by a car or something. I don't know. But I was laughing. But that's what happened when you're evil. In states like Virginia, officials like Walter Pleckard, he was just a goddamn state register. Officials like Walter Plecker aggressively reclassified American Indians as colored or Negro, erasing tribal identities and enforcing segregation. Legal and social consequences. Being labeled Negro rather than Indian could affect access to land allotments, tribal benefits, or recognition, legal status under Jim Crow laws. Mixed race identity. This was really fucked up. I'm so glad I wasn't born in these days. I'd have been one of the little Indians hanging in the tree because I'd have been beating the shit out of racist people. Many individuals had both African and Indian ancestry, but U.S. racial systems often forced them into a single category, usually the one with the least social privilege. In the 1920s and 1930s, Indians were burned off their farms. True. That's how my family ended up here in 1929. Jim Crow South, Indians in South Carolina, including Catawba, Lumbee, and smaller tribal communities, faced segregation laws that denied them equal schooling, voting rights, and economic opportunities. Land loss. Many Indian families lost land through discriminatory lending, tax foreclosures, and legal systems that didn't recognize tribal landholding. This often forced them into tenant farming or sharecropping. Migration north. In the 1920s and 1930s, Indian families from the Carolinas joined the broader Great Migration, moving to northern states like Pennsylvania, Connecticut, New Jersey, and New York for industrial jobs and to escape racial violence. Violence and harassment. While there are accounts of intimidation and violence against Indian families in the South, including arson and forced displacement, these are usually described in local oral histories rather than in official state records. You know, they're not going to put this shit in state records, but they'll make a movie about it, which is crazy. What was the result of unrecognized Indians? Many non-recognized Indian communities in the Southeast, including South Carolina, remained on their ancestral lands and became farmers, especially during and after the 19th century. These groups often avoided forced removal to Oklahoma during the Trail of Tears era by either blending into local populations, often being misclassified as free persons of color or mulatto, living in remote or rural areas where census takers and officials overlooked them, adopting farming and labor roles that allowed them to survive economically while maintaining cultural continuity. What was the result of the unrecognized Indians? Continue. Like Sumter tribe of Shira Indians, descendants of the Sioux-speaking Shira people who remained in Sumter County. Many became small-scale farmers and laborers, maintaining tribal identity despite lack of federal recognition. The Hanamli community, a distinctive native group in Sumter County descended from Turkish and American Indian ancestry. They were farmers and tradespeople, often misclassified but maintaining cultural cohesion. Lumbee and Petey descendants, though more prominent in North Carolina, many Lumbee and Petey families lived in South Carolina and remained on their lands as tenant farmers or landowners. Farming and survival and resistance. Farming allowed these communities to retain land, avoid removal, and preserve family structures. Tribes in Abbeville, South Carolina. Now, where are my family? Because they came up from York and went on down. They came up from York, South Carolina, and down into tribes in Abbeville, South Carolina. This is the fun part of it. So give me a second, y'all, so I can get a water. I'm getting hungry, too. We're almost done. We're on slide 60, so we got 20 more slides to go. I'll open the panel, and then if no one wants to come up, wow, I've been going for 2 hours and 15 minutes. So I do need a little break. We're going to come back here and finish these last 20 slides. So we're going to finish these last 20 slides. So give me a little water break, you guys. Be right back. All right. All right, everybody. So this is the fun part of the segment, the last 20 slides, and how I show people that their ancestors were really Indians. And what I'm doing in these last 20 slides, I'm actually going to talk about a little bit about my family history on one side. And I think you'll pretty much appreciate it, because when I show you my family side a little bit and talk about it in South Carolina, because they were in Abbeville, that is so far away. That's like 3.5 hours from Charleston. So my family, they ain't come on no damn ships and no docks and no damn South Carolina. My family wasn't part of Charleston, where that port is. They're like 3.5 hours away, being over. And I'm gonna show you on the little map. And also, they originally came down from York. They were really up in York first, which at Cherokee was huge, man. And they, traveled down and settled in Abbeville. So let's get to it. So I think when you see this part of the segment, you'll be able to understand your own, and I'll call you up on the panel, and I'll let you know what Indians occupied the area that you have as far back as you were able to go, because you were not able to be in an Indian territory unless you were actually an Indian. You cannot have a whole damn farm. You got to make it make sense. You can't have a farm on Indian territory and not be an Indian. You think the Cherokees are just going to let you, hey, okay, come out and from Africa, okay? And you have a whole damn 80 or to 100-acre land with as your farm to feed your family in the Indian land area? No, that's just not happen. No, it's not. So you got to make shit make sense. Okay. So let's get into it now. Let's get into it. You'll be able to say, now I understand how to read it, because the census records talk. Literally. So let's get it, y'all. All right. So tribes in Abbeville, South Carolina region, Cherokee. The Cherokee Nation held much of the northwestern South Carolina, Piedmont, including present-day Abbeville County. Abbeville sat near the lower Cherokee towns, which were part of the larger Cherokee homeland stretching into Georgia and North Carolina. The Cherokee were dominant in this region until the late 18th century. That's the 1700s, when land cessions and treaties forced them westward. Creek Muskegee, the Creek Confederacy, extended into parts of western South Carolina. Some Creek bands traded and occasionally settled near the Savannah River, which borders Abbeville County. Their influence was felt through alliances with conflicts with the Cherokee. So just like if you bring that to modern day, you got Negroes or Nagas in the north end that don't get along with Nagas in the south end. Same shit, different time. Like, and do you know in your hoods where other people, like, say, like, I live in the north end of Bridgeport. We have north, east, south, and west ends of our particular town in Bridgeport. And people from the north always had issues with people from the east. On the east end, they would fight and be jealous of each other, and girls get mad because a girl from the north end was dating a dude from the east end. That's how it was. The same shit, different time. Indians fought against each other. They've been doing it for thousands and thousands of years. Territorial control. Like the south end, you had Indians on the south end in Bridgeport that didn't get along, and they would have shootouts with Indians on the same shit from back then, still going on today. That's why them white colonists are like, no, hell no. You have your own governor, we'll have our own. You govern over the black people, and we'll govern over our own people. And that's how it was here in the north. I'm not lying. It was a hot stinking mess, y'all. But let's get it. The Catawba Nation traditionally occupied north central South Carolina, closer to the Rock Hill, but their hunting and trading routes reached into the Piedmont. They were known to interact with Cherokee and colonial settlers in the broader region. See, this is why they're the federally recognized tribes, because they're the ones who worked with the colonists to expand and grow the United States. Other groups, smaller Sioux-speaking tribes like the Chira and Shugri, lived in South Carolina's interior, but were gradually absorbed into the Catawba or displaced. The Yuchi also passed through the region before being pushed west. Now, here's that little map that I was showing y'all about. Let me see if I can make this bigger. I don't know if this gets bigger for y'all. But now, all right, here we go. Where the hell is Charleston? Yeah, I know I suck with maps. York. See, my family up here, I don't know if you can see me circling it, but see up here, we're at the very top. It says York. You see York, it's between the word Catawba and Sugary at the top in the purple. York. My family originally was there. Then they moved down here. If you look over to the left where it says Saluda, look down for Advil. That's where they stayed for a very, very, very long time. All right. So now when you look at where they're supposed to saying that all the slaves came in, where's Charleston at? Let's look over here. It's way over here on the opposite side. Let me see. Shira Lake, Watery, Lee, Sumter, Clarendon, Williamsburg. We'll see it another way. Burglary, Santee, where the hell is? Oh, Charleston is way down at the bottom. Okay, you see on the right, bottom right, where it says Kiowa. It's between the word Kiowa and the Disto. Charleston is way down there. And now if you look, my family 3 hours, 3.5 hours away to get to Advil. Ain't no way in hell. We was Indians already over here in Advil. So that's what I was trying to tell you guys. Then this is the language they spoke: Algonquin, Arakan, Muskegon, Siouan, and Yuchi. All right, the Cherokee was definitely Iroquois. All right, I don't want to go through all of these. History notes: Native people in the South Carolina had their own names and clan identifiers in Cherokee, Catawba, and Creek languages. Colonial records often misapplied European nicknames to native leaders or families. For example, census takers and traders sometimes labeled native men with Scottish or English nicknames rather than recording their actual names. And that's because we still do today have these offensive ass nicknames. I'm not even gonna lie, y'all. We still carry, they did not like our names, and they still don't today. They had names like Killer Snake, and that was very offensive. So the government's like, look, we're not putting that damn name on the census. So like, you had an uncle, he was called Killer, or Dad. They had like crazy ass nicknames, or like Pumpkin or Puss. Those names they was not putting on the census. Like, no. So they gave them, listen, we're going to read what they did. With our name, they didn't like our names. Colonial records often misapplied European nicknames to native leaders or families. For example, census takers and traders sometimes label native men with Scottish or English nicknames rather than recording their actual names. That's a part of erasure, y'all. English surnames. The surname, right, now we're getting into my family, is indeed found widely among Cherokee families, especially in historical rolls and genealogical records. It became common during the 18th and 19th centuries when Cherokee people began adopting, listen, English surnames through contact with settlers, missionaries, and government officials. So we're saying in the 17th and 1800s, that's the 18th and 19th century, they began adopting these names, surnames. The right became prominent among Cherokee. Seriously, why right became prominent among Cherokee? Colonial influence. Traditionally, Cherokee people use clan names and personal names that change over a lifetime. As European contact increased, English surnames were adopted for treatises, censuses, and church records. Missionary schools and records. Many Cherokee children educated in mission schools were assigned English surnames, like the surname Wright was one of the common ones, likely because of its prevalence among Scot-Irish settlers in the Southeast. Intermarriage. Families of European descent, often Scots, Irish, or English, intermarried with Cherokee women because Cherokee society was matrilineal. It wasn't patrial, it was matrilineal. Children were Cherokee but carried the father's surname, Wright being one of them. And that's a fact because my Nana maiden name, last name was Wright. Rolls in census records. The Wright surname appears repeatedly in Cherokee rolls, such as the 1851 Old Settlers rolls, the Dawes rolls, 1898, 1906, and the Miller roll, 1909. Cherokee homeland. The Cherokee Nation's ancestral lands were in the southern Appalachian region, western North Carolina, eastern Tennessee, northern Georgia, northeastern Alabama, northwestern South Carolina. Cherokee was every goddamn where. This area is often called the Cherokee Heartland, centered around the Great Smoky Mountains and river valleys. Northwestern South Carolina Cherokee areas. Oconee County, the farthest northwest bordering Georgia. Pickens County, the mountainous Tarrant part of the lower Cherokee towns. Greenville County, upper portions, foothills of the Blue Ridge Cherokee hunting grounds. Anderson County, northwest edge, near the Cherokee trading paths. Abbeville County is the northwest section, close to Savannah River, part of Cherokee influence until the 1700s, the late 1700s. By the mid 1700s, Abbeville, South Carolina was firmly within Cherokee territory, recognized in colonial maps and treaties. After the Treaty of Hopewell in 1785, the Cherokee ceded much of their South Carolina land, opening Abbeville to European settlement. The Catawba remained in South Carolina and are today the state's only federally recognized tribe. Historical explanation. These counties were part of the lower Cherokee towns, which stretched into northern Georgia and western North Carolina. The Treaty of Hopewell, signed at Kiowa in present-day Oconee County, marked the cession of much of this land to the United States. By the late 18th century, Cherokee were forced westward, but the eastern band of Cherokee in North Carolina still traced ancestry to these South Carolina lands. Facts. Cherokee homeland, northwestern South Carolina, including Abbeville, Oconee, Pickens, northern Greenville, and parts of Anderson, was part of the Cherokee Nation's territory. Lower towns, which was my family was at, Abbeville was near the lower Cherokee towns along the Savannah River, which connected Cherokee trade routes into Georgia. The Treaty of Hopewell, signed at Kiowa in present-day Oconee, this treaty marked the cession of much of the Cherokee land in South Carolina, including Abbeville. Migration and removal. After land cessions and the Trail of Tears, many Cherokee families were forced west to Oklahoma. However, some remained in the Carolinas. And descendants in the eastern band of Cherokee Indians, North Carolina, trace ancestry back to South Carolina, like Abbeville. Bing, bing, bing. Yeah, Kahi. Cherokee families remaining in Abbeville, South Carolina. Treaty of Hopewell signed. We read that. Reality on the ground. Many Cherokee families stayed on their farmland in Abbeville and surrounding counties well in the 1800s. Some blended into local communities while others resisted removal. Here we go. And y'all can look this shit up. Dark-skinned Cherokee descendants. Historical accounts note that families who remain often preserve their identity quietly, farming their land and avoiding conflict with settlers. That's a fact because that was my family. I'll give a bomb drop later. But the dark skinned Cherokee, why would they even write this? This is something else. Dark skinned Cherokee descendants. Historical accounts note that families who remain often preserve their identity quietly, farming their land and avoiding conflict with settlers. Eastern Band connection. Some of these families later became part of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians in North Carolina, who trace ancestry to South Carolina lands like Abbeville. And I know some y'all probably have census sheets like me. Like I have my family's Abbeville, South Carolina census sheets. It's crazy. Persistence. Even after treaties and pressure from settlers, Cherokee families in Abbeville continued farming, trading, and living in their ancestral homeland. Documentation. Colonial censuses and land records sometimes list Cherokee surnames like Wright, Brown, Cornelius, and Abbeville after 1785, and that's the fact. Because we have Wright, we have Brown, and we have our great granddaddy, old Cornelius, in Abbeville in 1785. Oh, yeah. Removal era. By the 1830s, many were forced west on the Trail of Tears, but pockets of Cherokee remain in the Carolinas, including Abbeville. And that was fact. Cornelius Fisher and Rebecca Brown. Cornelius Fisher, born in Wilkes County, Georgia, was part of the Cherokee and Creek borderlands in the 1700s and early 1800s. Rebecca Brown, born in Abbeville, South Carolina, around 1878, from a Cherokee family that remained on their farmland after the Treaty of Hopewell. Marriage. Cornelius moved north into Abbeville, married Rebecca, and she became Rebecca Fisher. Boing, boing, boing. Family together, they had 13 children, anchoring two Cherokee lineages, Georgia and South Carolina, into one household. There it is. I'm proud to be a Fisher, a Brown, a Wright. Historical note. Wilkes County, Georgia, in the 18th century, this was contested land between Cherokee and Creek. By the 19th century, this is the 1800s, Cherokee families were still present through pressure by removal policies. Abbeville, South Carolina, part of the Cherokee lower towns, where families like Rebecca's remain on farmland well after removal. Marriage link. Their union symbolically tied Cherokee persistence in South Carolina with Cherokee survival in Georgia. Legacy. This made me feel good about my family, man. When you do that deep-rooted research, having 13 children meant their lineage spread widely, likely creating many descendants who carry both Brown and Fisher ancestry. The surnames Brown and Fisher both appear in Cherokee rolls and petitions, making them recognizable within Cherokee genealogical records. Their family story reflects the broader Cherokee experience, survival, adaptation, and persistence across state lines despite removal pressures. And this is the last slide. Stand on your truth. Bottom line. That's the end of it. I can't believe I went through them slides so fast. You got to stand on your truth. And that's a fact, family. You got to stand on your truth. And I hope that these slides get you to now view, when you're looking at your census sheets and your ancestors' birth certificates, marriage certificates, death certificates, the graves, those old graves that people rudely kicked over. Most of graves that our people are all beat out. Nobody's really taking care of the cemeteries. So these are some things that we can do in our communities. We can go and work on those graves, fixing our ancestors' gravestones up, cleaning the grass off. Yeah, these are things we can do, and making them remove that African shit, because these graves are so old, but we want to fix them up. These are things that we can do positive in our communities. Fixing up those old gravestones that have been kicked over and spit on. We can go and fix them up. Those are positive things we can do. We don't have any more time to be killing each other and hurting each other in our communities. Our women in our communities hate each other just as much as the men hate each other. And that's bad, because we're supposed to be the matriarchs of our communities. And we've been for so long making bad examples to the younger women in our community. They follow our league. And I'm the first to take accountability on the actions of Generation X, which is my generation. And let me tell you something. I'm looking you in your face. Our generation era, Generation X, we fucked up the love that was in our hoods. We did. It started in our era. There was love in the boomer era, my mom's era. But Generation X, we're talking Big Meech, all of it. That era. That's my era. And I take full accountability for it. This is why I have a YouTube channel. This is why I have a tribe. This is why I have a newspaper, to instill more positive things in our heads. I'm not going to sit here and lie. If you're Gen X, I don't care. I'm not saying everybody was asshole, but we're all accountable, because it's our hood, and we allowed our sons, granddaughters, we lost control of them, to sell drugs, hypodermic needles, bad parenting, all this shit. We fucked up. It started in Gen X, where the hood was no longer just controllable. Even the cops were in on it. You see all the movies they put out, the Boys in the Hood movies. That is a real example. Boys in the Hood of my generation fucking up the urban communities across the 50 states. And you can't get mad at the Somalians because they're building a community. They're doing something. What you're mad about is because they're doing something that your goofy asses aren't doing. Coming together as a family to make a wonderful and great community. Now, I don't know what Trump got me laughing, and I got to give it to him. He trying to get their asses out of here for that fraud stuff. I don't know how all that's going. Okay. And I don't have anything bad to say about communities that come together, because instead of calling them all these horrible names, we should be following their example, but not doing the fraud part, but bringing and bridging our communities together to be positive people. I am not going to allow my grandsons to grow up to be no little gangster punk, little hood ass. I'm going to their ass. And so is my daughter and their father. So we have to continue we got to stop getting mad at other cultures that come over here in the United States and flourish. We could be doing the same thing, no excuses. It's too many excuses. The people that make the excuses are the ones you don't want to be your leaders. That's when you got to move away from them. They make excuse. Oh, you're not going to be able to get the government grants. You're not going to be that. Well, first of all, did you apply for a government grant to build a community? If you haven't, shut the fuck up. You're your worst enemy. So I much rather see and work with people in our community that have hope. These hopeless ass people, I can't help the hopeless. And I'm not going to waste my time trying to convert them, because you can lead a horse to a water, but you can't make his ass drink it. So when you can't make the horse drink the water, that's when you got to move on, because there's somebody else in the community that wants the same positive change as you. And we have to take care of that. I'm not trying to get on YouTube drunk or acting stupid and just say a bunch of things and then don't do nothing. That's who else you got to be away from. People that want to have these conversations on YouTube, it's just for clicks and to get a fucking audience. I took action. I said, okay, I'm gonna get a newspaper or to build a tribe member of people that's in that's across the 50 states, which makes accessibility very easy. Because if I have tribe members in California, I can say, hey, we need to get this out in California. We're all across the 50 states. We're not just in one state. Some of my tribe members in California might say, hey, you think you could pass this out in Connecticut for me? I'm in Connecticut. Why not? That's what I'm talking about. You build. I can't just be in one state. My ass got to be everywhere. And if you build up a tribe with members that join that are from the different 50 states, you can do positive things. Hey, if we have somebody in Chicago, hey, you think you could talk to your senator about this shit in Chicago? Yeah, I could do that. I'm gonna get this to him because I live in Chicago, and I'm gonna make sure that this senator gets this. It's easy accessibility. Okay, so I'll put the link in the chat, and you can come up and give me your opinion on how you feel about today's segment. You probably are drained because literally I was up here for 3 hours. So I'll put the link in the chat and wait a little while. Hey, Irma, and you tell me if this help you have a different outlook on the information, the information that you find and what to look for when you're doing your ancestry. Where in the hell is that? I don't even know where it is. Where is it? What is this? Oh, here it is. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm really being up here that many hours is starting, but there's the link. Let me see. Let me paste it. There's the link. If you want to come up for a little while, I'll wait for a little while. If not, I'll let it play where you can chit chat with each other. It's pinned to the top. If you want to come up and tell me and let me know if now when you see your census sheets, marriage records, and things of that nature, you now have a different outlook on your Indian ancestor and what to look for, and understanding now that you see what happened and how they were erased and how they got these crazy ass identifiers from a foreign government. So I'll wait. The link is pinned to the top. The link is pinned to the top, and I'll just sit here and wait. If nobody comes, you guys are freely able to talk with each other. I really would like to know how you like the segment and what you would like to hear more on. But yeah, I'm gonna sit here. Where in the world? What the heck? I don't even know where things are no more. Anyway, the link is pinned to the top. You're welcome to come up. The panel is now open. If not, I'll let you sit in there freely and enjoy yourselves. Chris, your mic is not connected. You gotta allow StreamYard access to your microphone and your audio and visual, whatever, and then you could turn your camera off. But you gotta reconnect your audio. When I see you, I'll let you up, but your device is not connected. Is that you, Chris?
Yeah, it's me.
Oh, okay, I had to make sure it was you. That's why I put my overlay. Because people have a tendency to want a porn bomb, and I don't play that. But
No.
I see it's you. I see you. So what's going on? What do you think about
Um,
today, Chris?
how do I turn the camera off? Cause I need a haircut. I ain't really
You
trying
look
to.
fine with your hoodie on. You look good. Everybody need to see how handsome you look. So
Oh,
leave it
yeah,
on. I like it.
this is a blanket.
That's okay. You're in your comfort zone. It's Sunday and you enjoying the vibe. So um let me see. Let me take this down. This is good stuff.
Yep.
So Chris, what do you think about today?
Long
Does it
time
give you
no
a
see.
different outlook? I know. Does it give you a different outlook on when you're looking at your government records?
Um, yeah, I didn't look too much into my government records, but yeah, like my great grandmother, she was lit. She was labeled as colored. I think she was like from Arkansas, and then
Mhm.
my grandmother was, I think she was born in Mississippi. So around that time, and that's her first child. So around that time, she was living in Mississippi.
So yeah, often the Indians were labeled as colored. And see, when Africa, the trick, the understanding, the funny part is when so-called Africans who came here in the 1900s, I don't know about no earlier times, none of them have, none of them have Negro, colored, or black on their birth certificates from their country or coming over here in the United States, which is which that's the big difference right there.
Yeah, my great grandmother, I think she hated Africans.
Right. The ones that they labeled colored, Negro, black are the Indians. That's what they did to the Indians, not to the Africans that came here. And they tell you that. And people just overlook that. The only ones that they classified that were the Indians, not Africans. They didn't classify Africans. So now these
Yeah,
Africans that come over here and they're born here, they're the real African Americans. Like Obama, he's literally an African American. His dad is Kenyan, so he literally is an African American. I don't have that ancestry, but he there because he wants to be an African American. You can't lump the Indians in with you, and that's what they did because of the brown skin. I don't care if you're Obama, Hussein, Gaddafi. I'm not you. Bottom line. And it's not being racist, it's standing on who I am versus who you are. You're not gonna wipe me away. No. No, 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 no.
yeah, yeah.
So
I was about
now
to
people
tell you,
can,
man.
huh?
I was about to tell you, like, I asked my aunt, like on Thanksgiving, I was like, do you have do you know of any ancestors that were African slaves? She said, my grandmother, which is my great grandmother, Miss Hattie was a slave. I said, she was an African slave. Like, I kept specifying that African part. Bottom line, no.
No, they like
And then it's like it is. And I was what did she say? She said, but she knew she knew she was African. I was like, did she ever tell you that? She's like, no. They used to get hanged for saying they were Indian and stuff. And I thought to myself, well, don't that like that's
African
not
didn't
helping your
exist back
case with
then.
the
That
African
word.
part.
Hmm. Just like
Yeah. So
when my aunt Viola, may she rest in peace. That's just so funny. She was 90, almost 100, and she was like, I was like, Aunt Viola, when y'all came in, this is how I try to trick them and play them. I was like, when your great great grandmother came from Africa, um, did they buy this land? She was like, huh? I was like, when your great grandma. I was trying to see if I'm like, I just want to know. I'm like, well, when your great grandmother came from on a slave ship and your great grandfather from Africa, and did they buy this land, in Adville? She was like, we ain't come from no Africa. I was like, I was trying to
yeah.
trick her to see if, maybe, let me see. But, they stamped in, Durham roots. I already told you, my grandmother already told us, but Aunt Viola, who is her older sister, she was the oldest of my grandmother's siblings. I was trying to trick her, and she, come in and out of her memory. And I was like, when great great grandma and great great grandpa came from Africa and here to Adville, did they buy this land as soon as they got in from Africa? She said, we didn't come from no Africa. What are you talking about? We were farmers. I said, you said no, African is Indian. And so I'm like, okay, well, there's saying that all of us, we came from Africa. She said no. And I said, okay. Granny told me, may she rest in peace, that um she was the first one born in Connecticut, my grandmother, in 1931. Her siblings, or her mother and their siblings came from South Carolina. She was the one that told the story that, how I asked that they burnt the house down. And I asked her about that. My Aunt Viola. I was like, oh, my Viola, when y'all was down south, um, did white men burn y'all out the house in South Carolina? And she said they said the house, they came to the house, and she said it wasn't no white guys. And I was like, well, who burnt y'all off the land in South Carolina and y'all had to come to Connecticut? She said, I was a little girl. She said it wasn't no damn white guy. They looked just like you. And so that right there told me it was black people. She said, I'm
Wow.
going to tell you the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. That.
Grandma was messing with somebody's husband and they burned the damn house out. And we was hungry and we had to leave. And they told us if we come back, they'd kill us all. And I'm like, oh my God, the story you hear. I'm like, what? She was being a hoochie mama. I was like, I thought it was. She said that too because it ain't paid the damn taxes. And they told us we had 24 hours to get out. And she said I was hungry. And I remember we came to Connecticut. And that's where my family been here since 1929. But they was all in Cherokee area.
Wow.
That's all Cherokee area. So that's why, hey, Smoke, if you can pinpoint the Indian that your family was, because you're not going to own a farm on Indian territory unless you're an Indian. You're not going to be African owning no farm on Indian land. Not happening.
Yeah.
Because
My
the Indians didn't want Africans coming over here. And they had a huge hate, so they was not selling their land or see they would not.
yeah. I
So
don't know what was up with my great grandmother. you know, why she moved from the South. My mom said she don't ever want to go back. That she said that she didn't ever want to go back to the South. My mom ain't never been to the South, but yeah, I think she said that her dad owned a whole town or something. So it was crooked
Yeah, they
over there.
did. They did. But after they imposed, because you remember what Andrew Jackson said, we wasn't citizens. But because those Indians that didn't want to go to Oklahoma, the laws of the United States were imposed on them. I said, all right, you don't want to leave, fine. And
So
that's how
yeah,
it happened.
yeah, I haven't done my genealogy. I just seen like a little bit of records, you know. Yeah, I need to do it though. Yeah, I know it's gonna
You
be a
need to. It tells a lot of story,
yeah, it's
and
gonna be a deep
you
story.
go
Yeah,
down there and you see those old graves from your ancestors. Those are the ones that I'm talking about that were just left there once they fled. They still have those old graves, and
yeah. I
it's
don't know too much
sad,
about
but
you know.
we're the ones that have to go and fix them. They're not. They were our old communities, abandoned, but those old stones are still there. And
Yeah, I don't know too
I
much
think
about her brothers and
as a people,
sisters either. So
it's up to us.
you know,
Yeah,
they
it's
probably
up to
buried
us.
over there. They probably it was probably like you know, it was probably some evil stuff going on over there. That's probably why she didn't want to go back to the South.
Some people scared though because they think of, they think, how we always had that superstitious thought. You going back there by them graves and the ancestors gonna get you and stuff, and
Yeah.
you going over there and messing around with the grave. But I mean, if you're going to clean it up, you should get together and go in those old communities because those gravestones are like leaning like really bad. And that comes from flood damage and things of that nature. We need to fix those old graves up because those old graves, none of them say African, none of them. And we need to, those are positive things we can do in our communities. Those graves been there since, God, you're talking probably the 14, 15, 1300s. Them graves been there.
Dang.
Yeah. Because we buried our ancestors. We didn't have like this modern day like such and such funeral home. It was just, we're talking colonial times. And we buried our dead. Oh, you went last summer. It was an experience down in, oh wow. Curious. A lot of people are now starting to go to those old graves because then you really learn, wow, I you didn't come here on no slave ship, and your grave is not going to be in Indian territory at that time. If you got a grave that's been there since, because before the destruction of records or whatever, you still have those cemeteries, and those cemeteries are old. Before there was even a colonial system set up, these cemeteries are there, and we need to fix them. We have to do that. It's not foreign people's responsibility to fix up our ancestors' old graves.
Yeah, that's our history.
Yes, that's our history. And if when we visit the places like the old cemeteries, you get a much better understanding of your story. Okay, this grave is in Abbeville. It's been here. Look, you could just tell how long it's been there just based on the stone. Because they made them stones like really weird. You know how you see the stones in the old cemetery, and some of them are like leaning. Those are some old stones. And you just simply ask your question. All right, this cemetery is in Abbeville. This is entirely Cherokee land. So why is this grave here? That means that ancestor was part of that tribe. You're not gonna have like a Pequot uh funeral gravestone in Abbeville, South Carolina, when Pequot's here in the north. You understand what I'm saying? So these are Indian graves. They're not, unfortunately, reclassified to coloreds and Negroes, but they're Indian graves. It's like the darker skinned Indians are the ones that, and that's just across America, period. Like in the South America, they have the Black Mente where they, oh, it's not good to be brown skinned. It's better to be lighter. And yeah, all kinds of shit was going on. It's, yeah. So that's all I really have today. I've been on for 3 hours. I think I made up for my horrible lecture from last time. But anything else you have before I get on up out of here? Because I'm getting a little hungry. Some of the
Nah.
curious. Why don't you hit that link and come up and tell us a little bit about it? Because he went to the cemeteries too. If you can. If not, I'm gonna bounce out. But I would love to hear it because he actually went to go see some of the old graves. Some of the graves are sunken because they've been there for so long. A couple of them did not. Curious. If you come up and explain that, that'll be awesome. Maybe he'll hit the link. I'll wait for a few minutes. But you have anything else? You need to get your butt on it.
Yeah.
It's an individual responsibility, Chris.
Yeah, I know. I think I've heard that they said they were Osage or Osachi or Cherokee. I'm not really sure. I know they colored
That's
in.
how you know you're right.
They colored the Negroes. I know they all black.
What state are you in now, Chris?
California, Bakersfield,
Oh
California.
wow, you way out there. Woo. You way out. I would be scared to live in California. I would never go there to visit. I'm sorry. I'm scared of California.
Why?
Only because the way they have them. I was looking, I think the map scared me. They had this map where California is just gonna be gone. It's gonna disappear because of water.
Yeah, I've heard that. Like,
oh wait, is he gonna hit the piano?
For real?
I can't read all these messages. Curious. I've been reading for 3 hours. Hit the damn link. But I'm scared. I saw that map. They have this map out. Maybe I'll share it next time, showing what states are just gonna be literally underwater.
I heard
California,
Florida. I heard Florida is like a whole bunch of shells. Like it's not even. I heard Florida is like an island of shells, and it's gonna sink. Like it's.
That's what I'm scared of. That's why I won't move nowhere else.
California's like that too.
Yeah, California is gone.
Oh no!
Period. I want to look at that map. I was like, oh, I would never live out here. I don't even know how people live out there. I'm like, literally, the whole California gone.
No,
in a certain amount of years. That's what it was showing on the map. I'm like, oh my God, these are places I'm never gonna live, but just like completely flooded out because of the weather.
Okay.
The weather is gonna literally do that, and I'm like, oh, I'm scared.
Oh man, now you make me want to leave.
He's not saying Cali used to be an island, right? So it's just going back to its natural state. I guess that would mean New York too, because New York is an island.
Okay.
New York is an island, and I never look at it as an island. I could forget New York is literally an island.
Yeah, I've never been there.
To New York?
I need to travel more.
But you was born in California?
Yeah, in 94.
Oh, you was born in California. So I was born in Connecticut. Indian Radio said that's why they letting it go to shit, Bethy. California, because I would be scared to live out there. I'm in
where should I go?
I'm in Cali too, Chris. Huh?
Should I go to Connecticut? Where should I go?
Oh, I'm not highly recommending. Look, don't ask me nothing about this state. Please don't. Don't ask me.
I don't want to leave Turtle Island. I like this place.
Oh, there we go. He's gonna tell us. There we go.
Yeah, I was down.
Hey, Curious.
What's up?
You said you went. Hi. You said you went down to see your ancestors' gravestones. What they look like?
I got videos of. I took a video of it. It was really surreal. I traveled to State Line, Mississippi, and what I learned was is that um, I'm a descendant of a lot of different people, but the Simpsons, main names are Simpsons, Leverettes, and McCanns. They all have streets named, roads named after them. In each,
Mm-hmm.
like McCann's, they live on one road. The Simpsons live down one road. The Leverettes live down one road. The Smiths lives down one road. So they all in State Line, Mississippi. State Line, Mississippi is a little bitty country. It's a country town. God damn. I mean, it's back there in the they got a bayou that's there. I mean, literally, it's a bayou there. And
Mm-hmm.
as I went down there, I went to the cemetery and I just started walking uh, the cemetery. It's down south in Mississippi. They do it different. They don't have like they have family cemeteries, actual family cemeteries.
Mm-hmm.
Was
And
it
like I
scary?
say, Simpsons, Jones, Smiths, Leverettes, they're buried in either one cemetery or they're buried in another cemetery. But the one that I went to was the Simpson Cemetery. It's on Google Map too. You can search it. Google Map Simpson Cemetery. One of my cousins put it on Google, and it was surreal. I mean, I got to see my great grandfather, my great great grandfather, my great 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 grandfather's grave. I believe the oldest two was my great 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 fourth generation great 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 back. I believe that's the two that was unmarked, but it was a real experience. I mean,
Do
so
the
I
Man,
sort of teared up
cemeteries
a little.
look old
Wait,
and tore down?
say it again.
Do the cemetery look old and
No,
tore down and no
some
pay attention to?
somebody's maintain it. They cut the grass. They make sure the weeds is cut back. But some of the graves, the oldest two graves, like I say, were sunken in. Uh, like four graves, maybe five graves, were sunken in the ground. They were sunken. You know how they're
That
down in
could
the
be from
ground.
water damage. Water.
Yeah. But from what I seen, they were all laid out there. I was surprised. I was
so you
I
actually
know you took pictures of all of them because you need those names. Those are so important.
yeah. I took
And
videos of them.
the actual area, the area. Where was the area?
It's called State Line, Mississippi. Uh, that was the area that it was in, and they called it. They called my cousins called it a different name. They call it Dog Brown Town, Dog Town. That was the name of the town at the time where the uh what you call that swamp was the Dog Brown Town, and they came in the 1800s from what my cousin said, and they took a lot of the McCanns out from in there. They actually shipped the McCanns to Indian Territory in Oklahoma. It was like
Okay.
50, it's like 50 people that was forced to leave the swamp, and they relocated them in Oklahoma, Indian Territory, Oklahoma. And like I say, their last names were McCanns, and I saw a list of them, but when you don't have nobody that's 90 years old that can really put their finger on, say, yeah, them was your people. You know how that goes. You can
But they're
research the
saying
hell.
right here, the Indians that occupied State Line region,
Choctaw,
Choctaw,
yeah, Choctaw, yeah.
and Choctaw towns and farmland stretched across Jones, Wayne,
That's
Greene,
where
and Clark counties.
and that's where they lived at Jones and Wayne County. That's where they all Jones and Wayne County is like right
Those are last names of Indians.
yeah, McCann's, Leverettes, and
Let me
Simpsons.
see. Wait, spell
McCann, McCann. It's a Irish name.
MC
C
C.
A
Uh-huh.
N N. McCann.
No E.
No. No, they it's different ways you can spell it, but from what I seen on the records, they spelled it MC, M capital C, lowercase c a n or a n n. It all depends on the centrist. Man, I got so many documents with them folks, but
Like
they
John
they were
McCain.
they were sent. They definitely were sent to.
Lewis McCann and William McCann were listed in 1824 missionary report of the Choctaw Nation Missionary
Yeah,
School alongside children of Chief Mashawatubi. Ooh, I'm looking at the database. This is McCann, Lewis McCann, spelled the way exactly.
yeah. So from where I've got one of my ancestors that I can find, his name was Tony McCann. And Tony McCann, I've been always trying to find the mama. And I think that I found the mama. I got a bunch of documents saved on Ancestry with that connection, but I haven't been able to follow who her mama was. Man, you know the movie The Free State of Jones? If you've seen that
No.
movie, if you've seen that movie, Hester McCann, from what I understand, the lady that played the healer was Hester McCann, my actual blood relative. Her last name
Mhm.
was Hester. Her first name was Hester, and she was it's a whole bunch of story, and that's where white blood came into the family at, or European bloodline came into my family, because she had 3 kids by this European, and it wasn't
Mhm.
no forced rape. It wasn't nothing.
Right.
She was just doing what she got to do to survive. And I found her. Her name is Hester. Like I said, I got a lot of documents, but
It's saying right here that the McCann families were often it was of often of mixed heritage.
yep,
These McCann families were often of Irish and Scottish origin who intermarried with Choctaw families.
yep, yep,
So that would be you.
yep.
They intermarried with your family, and their descendants sometimes appear in Choctaw records. But McCann Indians um
It was a
was
whole bunch of them.
never
I mean,
um
I,
huh
you can look at when I went down there the state line. I mean, it's amazing. I can tell you a story. When I went down there the state line, all my cousins, I was down there, and they were sitting outside. They was cooking fish. They was doing their thing. And I pulled up, and they had that smooth old caramel skin, and they all look alike. And they just came out. It was probably 20 people that was my relatives, distant relatives that I never met. And they were just
mhm.
out there by the cemetery. They was out there cooking. It was amazing. I'm not going to even lie.
See.
It was amazing. I was like, and so I traveled with my documents, and so they start asking questions, and they say, "Oh shit, he's for real. He got documents." I had birth certificates, death certificates. I travel like this because if I'm going down there to meet the people, I want to show them, hey, here's my connection to you.
Yes, we have to do. We're
Boom, boom.
so
And
scattered and separated.
and I start walking it back. They said, "Okay, now we know you are cousin now. You showed us this document with this person's name on it." And they called, let me see, my great grandmother, they called her, her name was Ida, but they called her Eyes, right? That's what they called her.
Eyes.
Yeah, they called her Eyes. And she said, so that was my great great grandmother. And so they say, "Oh yeah, great Aunt Eyes." We call her Eyes. I said, "Yeah, that's who my people, that's who I descend from." And they knew exactly who I was talking about, because she didn't die till like 64. I believe 64. That's when she died. But a lot of them knew her, and so it was a good experience, Chief. I ain't gonna lie. I done did this shit. I went to State Line, Mississippi. In
I bet they got good food out there in Mississippi.
But let me tell you something. They was cooking. My one cousin. So like I say, I ain't got nothing on country folk. But he talking about, man, I'll fry up a possum and it'll put a chicken to shame. I like, wait a minute. I said, wait a minute. He talking about, you want some of that? Nah, bro. Nah, bro. We ain't eat no fucking possum today. Not me. I said, let me tell you this. You don't have to worry about feeding me, because I'm never gonna eat nothing that you cook. When you talking about you frying possum and muskrat and all this shit, hell no.
But our ancestors, they did eat off the land, and it's me being, from the north, that sounded like real crazy to me. But see, my grandmother was accustomed to it. Like my grandmother didn't eat chitlins,
No.
but she knew how to clean them chitlins and cook them for my grandfather.
Right.
Because that's, traditions they brought from the South. The cornbread, the collard green. Oh my God, don't say collard greens. I'm gonna make this man drink it.
My mother
I
cooked,
love collard greens.
my mother cooked coon and rabbit.
Yep.
My mother could cook wild meat because when she was born in a little town called Uniontown, and so when she was little, they would go out there and catch the chickens, and she tell me they wring their necks and the chicken be flying all over.
I know.
My great grandmother. They was
Oh God,
on the
I feel
chicken.
so
It's like,
guilty
y'all
now when I
ain't
eat
killed the
chicken
chicken?
wings.
Yeah, so
My father's mother and them, they from Florida. They just like,
yeah, my mother could cook wild meat like it wasn't nobody's business. I ain't gonna even tell you no story on that. She would cook that wild meat, them turkey. She would cook turtle. She would cook chicken, raccoon, rabbit, squirrel. She would cook. Back in those days in the 70s here in Ohio, we was poor. So when somebody went out there and was hunting, they brought that wild meat home. My mother say, I'm gonna cook this. She barbecue that coon. That damn coon could be just like a chicken. That's all I can tell you.
my
Not the
father,
cute little
he
rabbits.
cooked. My father would cook duck. He
Everything.
cooked duck, and they also fried frogs and said it tastes like chicken.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
frog
I
legs.
never had frog.
duck is supposed to be good.
They only cook the frog legs, but the frog legs, if they anytime you put flour on anything, it's gonna taste like chicken. They mosquito. I'm just telling you.
I was always scared. I never taste rabbit. I never taste frog. But that's a thing that they do down south. They go frogging.
They go frogging. They hunt them rabbits. They hunt them coons, squirrels. I mean, if it sounds strange, like I say, I grew up here. You know where I grew up. I grew up here in the north, in Ohio, and so my mom and them was country people.
Oh wait, he said
go out there.
deer, rabbit, frog.
I used to wonder
Wait a
why
minute.
even
Snake? They ate snakes?
Nah, I don't eat no snake.
Thompson has said that they ate snake.
Nah,
That's the South. That's
nah.
I ain't never ate no. I'll never.
It tastes like chicken.
Nah. My uncles and them, they used to go hunting. It seemed like they used whatever was hunting the season they were hunting, whatever hunting season it was, part of the year it was, they would go hunting. They come back, they had a rifles, they go out there and hunt the wild meat and they bring it back home. And my mom and them, my grandmama and them, they prep it up and they would cook it or they freeze it for the next holiday. They would cook it for the next holiday, and that's what we would be eating. So I mean, I grew up eating wild meat, So, but yeah,
Wow.
the cemetery.
This man that work at my job, he's retired now. He's been retired now a minute. But at a former job that I work at, he was they're all from the north, and they go beer hunting and make beer soup.
Oh, you said bear?
Bear.
Beer soup. He brought some. He brought some to work, and he was eating it. He was like, "This is beer soup."
Yeah.
I thought you said beer. I was like, beer?
No, bear, like a beer. I don't know what type of beer it was, but they eat
Grizzly
beer,
bear,
and then
brown bear.
Somebody on
That
YouTube was telling me
sounds
how
like an Indian dish right there.
and somebody on YouTube was telling me how they clean the squirrel and they cut the feet out. Oh, I just was like, I'm like, oh my God.
I'm gonna tell you something.
I don't want to eat them.
I'm not a meat eater. It's been a long time since I ate meat, but when my mama back in the days in the 70s when my mama was alive, or in the early 80s when my mother was alive, when she made them damn gravy smothered rabbit, shit. I'm gonna tell you the truth. I can still taste them damn that gravy smothered rabbit with some damn rice. Boy, shit.
That's evil.
But see, my grandmother now, she made gravy smothered chicken and gravy smothered cube steak. and over that white rice because I love white rice. I'm just like a rice fanatic. I eat rice with every meal.
All I'm gonna
I
tell you,
love gravy and rice. Matter of fact, we having fish cakes today. We call it fish cakes in North because I'm not down south. They probably call it something different. But fish cakes, I love salmon cake, fish cakes.
salmon patties, salmon
Yeah.
croquette. That's what you go. Yeah. But like I say, that
Yeah, having that today. I love that with some white rice. Oh my God. But they got to be drowned with onions.
that's the only way to cook salmon
I
patties.
think I'm gonna make a pot of grits. I'm gonna have that for dinner. Because I can eat grits any time of the day.
Right.
Grits with salmon. Oh my God, it's so good.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, brother. Go ahead.
Is peanut butter stew African?
Huh? What is that? I never heard of that.
You never heard of peanut butter stew?
No, I don't even think they got peanut butter in Africa. I never heard an African say they had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
I don't know about that.
Okay, touche.
I didn't. I never heard an African say, "Oh, I'm eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich." I only hear that here, and I tear up a damn choke sandwich in a minute. I'm from the north.
Yeah,
I'm from Connecticut, and I tear a damn peanut butter and jelly sandwich up. I'll eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich at 2:00 in the morning with some.
You was little and hungry. Your mama say, "What? I'm gonna make you a peanut butter jelly sandwich." You say, "I eat you a peanut butter jelly sandwich. Drink you some milk."
I couldn't drink milk. Or it had to be chocolate milk, and they had to put some chocolate in it.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, we like I say, man, I learned a lot going down there. I've been to two places. I went to Uniontown, State Line, Mississippi, and Uniontown, and Uniontown is where my mother's father is from, and they call it the Cahaba Capabah something shit like that, and that was the Indians that was in State Line, Mississippi. I mean Uniontown, Alabama. So I've been last year. I did two places. Uniontown, Alabama, and State Line, Mississippi. And I went down there just to learn about my family, and I learned a lot. So sometimes you have to get up and go to the different locations where your family originate from to see exactly what's what. It's information down there. It's information down there about your people. You just have to find it. And that's what I did. I found, some information about my family.
Historically, yeah, okay, say Choctaw and Creek Muskegee peoples were in the tribes in Uniontown.
Yep. So when
Treaty of Dancing Rabbit in 1830, a hot mess.
When you understand this, and this is not Bible shit, when they say you from many nations, truly you are from many nations. Different when you say you from that's Bibles, when you from different nations, we are from different nations. We have Creek, we have Cherokee, Choctaw. Just with the four different states that my ancestors were. PD, I had some ancestors that come out of Carolina. So we truly are many nations.
Many nations.
Truly are. It's just not a particular group. If we had if our family members had stayed in that area, then yes. But because they migrated from Virginia, North Carolina, like some of my ancestors did, they came out of Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, but they all are indigenous.
Yeah, all the bloodlines.
Yeah, I can't say what particular group is one, but they're just, I'm an offspring of or descendant of many nations.
Yeah, we are. We can't just say that we're one nation of Indians because we all intermingled and intermingled with each other.
That's it. And so I understand that, and like you said before, that the European blood is there. I know exactly.
Yeah.
I know exactly when it came in because I found him. I know who he is, and here's the damnedest thing. One of the family, the Simpson Cemetery is there on the same road as I think it's the Simpson Road. Is there, and the so-called European family cemetery is no more than a quarter of a mile up the street behind the Simpson Cemetery.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you. I
You know
found
what? I found very interesting that in the South, predominantly in the South, they really named a lot of those streets come from the original families.
their
Like
family. Mhm.
my deceased husband, when we went to Chase City, Virginia, they literally lived on a street called Smith and Wesson because
Mhm.
that was their last name, Smith and the Wessons.
Mhm.
And that was the name of the street, Smith and Wesson.
Yeah, you made
And
me.
they all lived on there.
You make me laugh when you talk about Chase City, Virginia.
Yeah. Oh, because you went down there flirting with women and
No,
stuff. I remember.
I was married to a sister. My first marriage, I was married to a sister from Chase City, Virginia.
Isn't it pretty out there?
Yeah, it was only one flashing light. I remember that damn one flashing light. That mug was flashing like hell as we was going. What was the name of it? So we flew into Norfolk. We had to catch the bus from Norfolk down to a certain part so that my mother-in-law at the time could pick us up and drive 21 miles back to Chase City, Virginia.
Yep. They were he's from I went
They
up
were
there and
smooth. They were smooth, dark skin. I mean, heavily melanated, dark skin. They skin was smooth. My mother-in-law, my father-in-law, he looked like he was a damn Virginia Indian, but he was something else. Boy, he get that wine and liquor
my
in his
husband was your complexion. He was Virginia Indian, but their great his great grandfather was white man.
Mm.
And my husband was your complexion.
Oh, oh.
Yeah.
Man, it was time. Every time you say Chase City, Virginia, I start laughing. I think about old girl. I
Yeah.
like, damn, I know where
I
Chase.
had a good time when I went down there in Chase
Me
City,
too. Me too.
Virginia. They got some good food, man. Them folks could cook in Virginia. I don't care what nobody say. Virginia, Mississippi, and places like Tennessee, them like real and Alabama. When you talking about eating some good damn southern food, them in the states.
Yep. You're
I'm
What
right.
about
serious.
Arkansas?
I've never been to Arkansas, but I mean,
Okay.
I would think that Arkansas is cooked
But
good.
a lot of people migrated to Arkansas. A lot of people, well, a lot of people from the South migrated to Arkansas, migrated to Oklahoma. It's just a lot of migration. That's
They
the
was
big
back and
part.
forth between
Yep.
Oklahoma and Arkansas because it's
Yep.
the land's touch, right?
Touch. Yeah. They was back and forth. St. Louis, same shit. Everybody,
Mhm.
we focus on the South because the South don't get its just due on history, and they
Right.
try to take us to Oklahoma and out west. But our folks, a lot of our folks, some of our folks, I can't say a lot of them, some of our folks did migrate from Mississippi to Oklahoma and
Mm.
Arkansas. They was like, "Fuck this, we out of here. Y'all can have this." Excuse my language.
Yeah.
Yes, we going uh to Indian territory. I mean, it is what it is.
Mhm.
But yeah, I found that cemetery. It was amazing. I'll send you a video of it. I'll send you a video of. Well, it may be too long. I tell it to you. I'll show you.
Yeah.
I took the video. It's a big damn cemetery. I know it had to be at least an acre and a half of just
Mm.
my relatives in the
Yeah.
ground.
All them bodies. The only way they gonna talk is if y'all go out there and you gotta take pictures of it so you could. I mean, that's your information of your history.
Yep.
Because remember, as our history didn't matter in the school systems, so our history became U.S. history rather than our actual. What is our history? What are our people about? And the only way you're going to get it back, you have to backtrack and go take pictures of those cemeteries and things of that nature. So you could say, well, you might not know your Uncle Buck, but here's his grave. Uncle Buck is dead, right?
They,
Something
they
you
there.
need it.
They there.
So
They laid out in that land, and you could sit, like I say, down there in Wayne County and Jones County. They all right there in that area, and
Yeah.
to me, it was amazing. I had, like I say, I even sort of got a little bit emotional. I don't get emotional, but I was a little bit emotional.
Yeah, you get them on because you finally find people that were here in the 15 and 14 and 1300s. You're finding them. You know, this is what I mean when I say that you can't let descendants of foreigners come and tell you about your history. You got to go back and get the stuff. Say, no, here I am right here. You came here on a ship, or you needed a Visa card and all this stuff to get here. I was already here. That didn't exist.
Right.
You know, you gotta check them at the door, and maybe eventually they'll stop trying to tell our history and worry about their own. You
Well,
gotta take ownership.
I like
Curious,
I
what's
put
your
the hand
name?
up quick. I'm like, oh no, you don't worry about your own history, not mine. You
right.
don't know me or
Uh,
anybody in my family.
wait, curious.
Yes, sir.
What was the oldest grave again that you found?
So my great fifth generation great grandfather, he was born in like 1790 something.
And then when was the supposedly when the first Europeans came over here?
Yeah. And so his grave,
Beverly.
he died somewhere around 1859, 1860. And that cemetery, that land that the cemetery is on, is the family's private cemetery. And the oldest two graves I found was right next to the road. They wasn't really next to the road, but they were right there on a fence line where they built the fence at. But they were the two, and they were the ones that was the most sunken. Joseph Simpson and Rhoda Simpson. I believe that was their two graves because they didn't have headstones on them.
Okay.
They didn't have,
no Africans, were there?
huh?
No
He being
Africans?
stupid.
No fucking Africans, bro.
No,
I'm gonna slap him. I'm gonna slap him. Hey,
No.
curious. Oh God, I had a brain fart. Oh damn, maybe the next time. But you guys, I'm getting tired. It's 3.5 hours. I want to get off and go get my dinner. I'm really hungry. I didn't eat any breakfast today. All I had was a Dunkin' Donuts coffee.
No, that's poison.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Don't be talking about my Dunkin' Donuts coffee. It's not poison.
You gotta be careful.
Hey Jeremy, huh?
Be careful with that.
Oh, I know what I was gonna say. When I think of Mississippi, I don't know why, the first thing that comes to my mind, this is what Hollywood does to you, but it's true in some sense. When I think of Mississippi, I always, first Color Purple comes to my head with Mr. When you see all that damn land he had and how far he had to go to the mailbox, and
Yep.
he told if I done touched that mailbox, when she was saying any mail come from me, but that's how big our ancestors' farmlands were.
Yep.
Mr.
Yeah,
And I think about it, and the fact that Sealy, it shows how we were sold by our dads because we had like arranged marriages and shit going on. And that part where when Mr. Danny Glover comes and say, hey, I want to marry your Nettie. And he was like, no, because Mr. White, he told me he could have Sealy.
Right. So
Which later became Whoopi Goldberg, but that's the shit we did as Indians, and that was not Africans making exchanges.
no.
But just the land was so beautiful.
Yeah.
So
So my fifth J, that Joseph Simpson in 1870 had 176 acres of land. 176.
wow. See,
And so Simpson
learn all this.
Street, a lot of them ancestors, my ancestors still live on that block of land.
That strip, yeah, a lot of people just never left to this date.
It's there. So
Yeah,
go get you something to eat. I'm gonna go get
yeah, I'm tired. I'm going to get something to eat. I'm really hungry.
All right.
But it's been wonderful, y'all. I'm out of here. See y'all next time. I'll be live more now. I'm coming back. It just took a long time.
All right.
Love y'all, and I'm back.
All right. Love y'all.
Take
Bye.
it easy, everybody.
How do I fix out this? Yeah. Here I come.